welcome everyone here today. Our first order of business, if everyone will please stand. Supervisor Mike Carter will lead us with the invocation, and Supervisor Nick Mitchell will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I started to say good morning, my day's sort of mixed up, but good afternoon. It's great to see everybody here today, and let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you that we all rose this morning and can enjoy the beauty around us. Please guide and direct this board in all the decisions we make today. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. At this time, does anyone have any concerns regarding the agenda as presented?
I appreciate that.
If not, do I hear a motion to approve?
I will, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do we have a second? All right, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call on that, please?
Supervisor Jamison? Yes. Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes. All right, at this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce Dr. Murda Martin, the president of Ferrum College, and she's going to come up and we're going to introduce some of our coaching staff. Some exciting times at Ferrum College, and I have a resolution to read, and she brought Cleve up with her. And Dr. Martin, at this time, I'll let you, if you will, you have a moment to introduce the coaching staff and who you brought with you, and then I have a resolution to share. But thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of you, distinguished Board of Supervisors. It's a privilege to be with you today. This is indeed a wonderful time at Ferrum College as we're embarking on a journey to Division II, but also a journey of excellence on the field and in the classroom. And I think that the representatives from the athletics division that we have here to introduce to you today will showcase that excellence that we are looking to see in the years to come. We had a prospect camp. I'll have her very quickly. We had a prospect camp here this weekend. We had about 160 kids on campus. And what I said to them was that Ferrum College has been known as being a destination of choice, and we had a long and incredible journey as well as a long and incredible history of excellence. Something happened along the way, and that's okay, because Ferrum College is alive and well. We're open for business, and here we come. So get out of our way, because you're going to see who we are. And the individuals who you're about to meet will exemplify that excellence on the field and in the classroom. I'm very privileged to be able to go through the journey with a gentleman that's next to me. Cleve Adams is probably is very well known to all of you, but it is a gentleman that bleeds black and gold. It is a gentleman who acts with utmost integrity and honor. He is a black hat, he's an alumnus, and he cares deeply for this place that I have come to call home. And so I'm going to pass it over to the gentleman who's joining me in this journey, and the individual without whom we would not be embarking on this. I'm very privileged to have him alongside with me, and it is my privilege to introduce you to the athletic director, former head football coach of Ferrum College, Coach Cleve Adams.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity to be before you today. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. I walked in and was pretty overwhelmed. I ride past here every day and never really spent a lot of time in here. But I just want to take a moment to thank Dr. Martin as well for her leadership on campus. I've been in and around Ferrum since I was 17 years old, off and on, and I've witnessed a lot. And 18 months ago, roughly, when Dr. Martin showed up, I knew right away we were in for a great ride and a memorable ride. And it's just been unbelievably interesting, the journey. Her leadership, her enthusiasm, her vision has been great, and it's very refreshing, to say the least. But just want to take a moment. Don't want to prolong things. We have several of our coaches that are here as you know, we just started the semester, so we are extremely busy in terms of just getting our student athletes focused and settled for this fall semester. We may have a few come in here a little bit late, but we have a few in the back, and I'll start from the right. Kevin Sherman, our head football coach, is here with us. This is Brian Harvey, our head women's basketball coach. Karen Harvey just transitioned from our head women's lacrosse coach. She had moved over to the administrative side, where she is assisting myself and our team as assistant director of compliance, assistant director of sports information. And then we have one of the newcomers here, Mr. Bus Baker. He will be helping our head track and field cross-country coach, Andre Kidd, who couldn't be here, but he is an unbelievable young man, very passionate about the coaching our distance runners, and it will help us build that track and field program. Next to him is Quadre Witcher. He's no stranger to Ferrum. He's a Ferrum alumnus. Moved him over from the residence life, and he is now in as our strength and conditioning coach at Ferrum, which is really instrumental for us. And then last but not least is Miss Courtney Cooley. She has just joined us, unbelievable young talent, as an assistant softball coach alongside of Coach Josh Freeman. Not in attendance today is Eric Owens, who we just brought home, another alum who is taking over the baseball program and doing some incredible things. And it's been a journey this summer. When we made the transition to Division II, we were told by the colleagues that we were working with in terms of researching and looking at feasibility, there will be some movement along the way. Everybody's not going to take this journey with us. So it's been an interesting summer, to say the least, in terms of hiring coaches. We appreciate your support, and thank you for having us.
This time I have a resolution I'd like to share. Again, it gives me great honor to take the opportunity to show and extend the county's support to Ferrum College and Ferrum Athletics. Having lived in Franklin County all my life and growing up in Henry and Ferrum area, as I've often said, I refer to it as God's country for a reason, but more importantly, and I'm blessed to be able to call it home. And not just because I work there, but it is home. And it's a wonderful place. So whereas Ferrum College, originally established in 1913, has a long-standing tradition of excellence in athletics and becoming a sports powerhouse. Whereas Ferrum College made the significant transition to Division III athletics during the 85-86 academic year, subsequently joining the Dixie Intercollegiate Athletic Conference in 86-87, which was later renamed USA South Athletic Conference in 2003, whereas Ferrum College further elevated its athletics program by accepting a bid to join the ODAC, or the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, in 2018-2019 academic year, whereas Ferrum College's upcoming transition to Division II athletics within the Conference Carolinas by the 25-26 academic year aligns with both the college's mission and the conference's motto, body, mind, and soul. Whereas this transition will contribute to the expansion of Conference Carolinas football membership, increasing the number of teams to 7, with Ferrum College's participation in the 25-26 academic year. Whereas the legacy of athletics excellence at Ferrum College was established by notable figures such as Coach Abe Naff, Mr. Billy Wagner, Mr. Everett Fox, Coach Hank Norton, Coach Eric Owens, and continues under the leadership of Dr. Murdo Martin, President of Ferrum College, and Mr. Cleve Adams, Director of Athletics, and the dedicated head coaches of the college's various sports programs. Be it resolved that Franklin County is fully committed to Ferrum College's successful transition to Division II athletics within the Conference Carolinas, recognizing this as a strategic step that will enhance the college's athletic programs, enrich the student-athlete experience, and strengthen the institution's position as a leader in collegiate sports. Be it further resolved that the Franklin County community supports this transition as a continuation of Ferrum College's proud athletic tradition and as an opportunity to reaffirm the foundational principles upon which Ferrum College was built, ensuring that the legacy of excellence will continue for generations to come. This resolution celebrates Ferrum College's commitment to its athletic transition to Division II while honoring its history and values that guide its future. This is a resolution passed by the Franklin County Board of Supervisors, and I'd like to give you this.
Sir.
And again, I want to thank you so much for y'all coming, and I just can't say enough about Ferrum's athletic programs, and not just the athletic, the school itself, and the way it is mentoring the young people that come there. And you know, we're building strong adults. I do believe that. But before you leave, I have one surprise I'd like to share with you, and I'm going to ask Mr. Whitlow if he will to explain as I go back to my seat.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Chris will share a little something with.
Sure. As Mr. Tatum is coming back to the dais again, I would like to congratulate you, Dr. Martin, and certainly Director Adams and your coaching staff. And I recognize one coaching staff there, Coach Jay there, who's done a tremendous job with the fitness center. I can attest to that this summer, the improvements that have been made there. It was nice to see great partnerships today. Yesterday morning and again this morning, the Blue Ridge Fire EMS Academy, which is a partnership with Ferrum College, which is training our EMT paramedics right here in Franklin County. They're on the campus of Ferrum College, and it was good to see our group of guys in public safety out there joining forces with your team. So I just wanted to thank you. So I have some other news today that this is just hot off the press in the last 60 minutes. So proud to announce that the county did receive notice today of partial funding of a hazard mitigation grant. And that was to resolve the flooding problems there in the Ferrum Village at the entrance to the Ferrum Mercantile property. Of course, we worked with West Piedmont, Ferrum College, and the West Virginia Water Authority on this grant. Now, this is a phase one portion of the grant for the board with some of our village improvements, and it's in the amount of $199,000. And so that will certainly help us do the engineering work, hopefully, for that intersection there. I know it's been problematic on Route 40 as an area of flooding, but then also there adjacent to the college. So we look forward to that partnership and moving forward with that project. And so the board will be looking for you to all to take action later at today's meeting to accept that grant award. So congratulations. We just have received word with that. So
Thank you. Thank you, and God bless. We are truly blessed to be here in Franklin County. Since my arrival here 18 months ago, I've been telling everyone we are the college of Franklin County, and we are so grateful for the support that you all give us. I will tell you that last weekend when our students were moving in, they saw your sign, and many of the parents remarked that they had not seen the counties, any counties where they had taken their other children, welcome their students back. So for that, I am very, very grateful. And I look forward to being able to say to all of you, welcome home, because the football season starts just in 2 weeks. So come on down. We'd love to have you. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Thank you, Cleve. All right. We have several recognitions today. It's a busy day. A lot has been accomplished. A lot of awards have been given out and received by county departments. And first up, we have some very special visitors. We had Dr. Martin and her staff coming in from the college. And again, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us. And next, we'd like to recognize a number of our county staff. I'd like to call Eric Schmidt of our GIS department up to the podium. We'd like to recognize our GIS recipient of the Esri Special Achievement Award. This Special Achievement in GIS Award, also known as the SAG Award, is an international honor presented every year at Esri's International GIS Users Conference in San Diego, California. This award is hand-selected by Jack Dagerman, Esri's founder and president, from a pool of foreign and domestic nominees. Out of the hundreds of thousands of Esri GIS license holders around the world, roughly 100 foreign and 100 domestic nominees are awarded the SAG Award for their work in GIS each year. This year, Franklin County GIS was one of the 2024 Domestic Special Achievement Award recipients and was one of only 11 counties in the United States to receive this award. Franklin County's nomination was in recognition of the significant structural changes that the GIS office has been steadily making in the county's GIS infrastructure. Franklin County is leveraging of GIS in new and creative ways, and the profoundly new vision for GIS the county has eagerly been adopting. Though much of this work has been behind the scenes, and some of it has also been applied to elevating Franklin County's public profile as a technologically friendly county. Indeed, this is an organizational award because the GIS office could not have accomplished any of these ambitious goals without the support of county administration and the fellow county departments whose staff are willing and eager to adopt new technologies in order to increase operational efficiency in the county. I want to say thank you to Eric and your team for all your hard work and the execution of that vision. Eric, again, congratulations and thank you so much for all you do for Franklin County, all your hard work, and this just shows that it doesn't go unnoticed.
I appreciate that.
All right. One down, more to go. Next, we'd like to recognize our financial department. Mr. Brian Carter, please come on up to the podium. Mr. Brian Carter and his team have kept us on a straight and narrow for a long time. We're pleased to announce that our financial department has been recognized once again for their hard work and dedication in accomplishing this never-ending task. The Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting is a national recognition awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association. The GFOA established the certificate program in 1945 to encourage and assist state and local governments to go beyond the minimum requirements of generally accepted accounting principles to prepare annual comprehensive financial reports that evidence the spirit of transparency and full disclosure. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting. This is the 22nd year that Franklin County has received this award. Thank you, Brian, and the finance team for all your hard work. We know it hasn't been easy, but thank you.
This one's pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah, this one's heavy. Yeah, congratulations. Thanks, Tim. Exercise for today, that's for sure. All right, last but not least, the board would like to recognize our IT department and its recent Digital County Survey Award. Dwayne Parker, please come up front. It's my understanding that this award is fresh off the press. Dwayne has brought it to share it with us. The Center for Digital Government and National Association of Counties survey honors counties who embrace innovative technologies, data governance, cybersecurity, and the effort to develop a more responsive and effective government. In our population category, we're proud to announce that Franklin County ranked 8th. Dwayne has previously shared that this achievement would not have been possible without the support, dedication, and hard work of all internal departments in the IT department. Remarkably, Franklin County has won this award as a top 10 digital county within the United States for 15 years. The Board of Supervisors would like to thank Dwayne and the IT department for all their contributing internal and all the other contributing internal departments for making this award possible. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Chairman, while you make your way up, what a privilege it is today to acknowledge the unsung heroes in our departments across this organization. There's a lot of work that goes into the county day in and day out, and we have superlative staff. And I think I just wanted to express my sincere appreciation for the privilege of having you work for Franklin County. Thank you.
Absolutely. I can't say enough about our staff, our departments, all the hard work that each one of you put in every day. Just know that it does not go unappreciated. Anyone else like to comment on this before we continue? All right, we'll move right along.
I had one comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I asked Mr. Whitlow if now would be a good time to ask Brian for some extra money.
Yeah, he's in a good mood, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Don't be fooled. There's never any extra money.
That's the right answer.
We'll move on to our consent agenda. Board, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, if there are no exceptions, I would move the approval of the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. There are no other comments. Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
All right, moving right along. Brian Casella, VDOT.
See if I can get away with not knocking that off. Right there. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. It's good to be here with you today to do the VDOT road report. You'll see we've got some pipe replacement projects from our previous 30 days that have been completed. Name them real quick. McNeil Mill Road, Old Ferrum, Round Hill, Chestnut Hill Road, and right at 670 Burnt Chimney Road in Lovely Valley, we've been able to do some clearing to improve some intersection sight distance. We have plans to do more than that. There's about 6 evergreen trees that we plan to have those removed too by our roadside section. So that's been a sore area for us for a while because there's been some complaints, but we have limited right of way. We work with the property owner to be able to move forward and get those things trimmed back. So more to come on that. Looking ahead on the next 60 days, of course, we got our patching that we're doing and mowing. You may have heard some, we're seeing a number of work orders for the Johnson grass that's growing up. So we're getting after it. Our areas are working hard to try to get to all of our secondary routes for their finishing up their second mowing, beginning our third cycle. Let's see, Dudley Amos, just a quick update. We say mid-August that we would have that back open as far as the patching goes, but it'd probably be more like the end of the month. So, but still an area of focus. and leaning over Route 728. That's in progress right now. They poured concrete. I believe it was yesterday. We'll be moving on to Marybed Hollow, Route 807, and then of course on US 220, more in the southern part of the county, we have some paving, patching that's going on right now. You'll see all of the surface treatment routes that we have there. A few more have since been completed since we submitted this report, but they're making their way. And moving on to the third page, let's see. We have under completed studies, we have Route 613 Knapp Road. We did a review based on a crash there, and there was a recommendation to install some chevron signs and upgrade some existing curb warning signs. So, and then drop down 2 bullets. Ms. Smith, Route 122, Booker T. Washington, you had requested about centerline rumble strips. And I'm glad to be able to report that we're going to focus on that. We have a recommendation to install centerline rumble strips with our fiscal year 25 on-call maintenance. And then there's about a little over 5 miles worth that we'll do with that cycle. And then as we get future paving projects to come in, there's an additional several miles that we will look to do. One to note, maybe of interest for you, would be from Lost Mountain up to Parkcrest right there at Rock Outdoors. And then once you get through Westlake, you really can't do the centerline rumble strips because you have a lot of turn lanes and two-way turn lanes through there. So once you get up on the northern end at Spring Lake, which is right beside Caps, we'll go north another couple of tenths of a mile towards the bridge, not all the way to the bridge. So,
Brian, I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And lastly, I've got on here for the page 3 here, the implementation of the locality speed limit. It's okay by you. I'll hold that maybe to the end, and we touched on it briefly last month. Not a lot of update, but I'll get just a few more details if that's okay. And then last page, our project status. So your first 3 bullets, those are the projects that were bundled together, went out to bid. We received bids at the end of the month. And unfortunately, the bids came in above what our engineer's estimate is. So once again, this time we're going to have to reject them. The way I understand it is they'll go back out to bid again next month. So more to come on that. Just having difficulty, one, getting some bidders, and then when we got some bidders this second round, by bundling these projects, they just came in way above our estimates. So we'll continue to move forward with that. I'll drop down to Route 1136 Goldfinch Circle. That's a rural addition project. We have that open to funds. We are assembling different crews from our various areas so that we don't completely inundate one. And we're going to do that with state forces and hired equipment, some tree trimming, some ditching, and then we'll come in and put a good surface on it, bring that one into the system. Well, we'll bring it into the system so we can go ahead and complete that project. I know those folks will be happy. And then lastly, I have Route 705 Chestnut Hill. This is a bridge replacement project. You'll note sometimes we'll come to you with a superstructure replacement, sometimes they're bridge replacements. This one is a full bridge. And with that, it's going to be an extended road closure that we're proposing. And that's going to be for approximately 14 months. The project will go to advertisement in December, and then likely the contractor would begin either in March or April of next year. So we have that coming up. I think that concludes my presentation, unless you all have any questions.
All right, anyone have any questions for Brian?
Quick
Go
one,
ahead.
if I may. Brian, by the way, thank you again for all you're helping me with. With the first portion of your report with regard to right-of-way brush cutting, would you just double back and make sure that Dudley Amos has been or will be on that list? I've had some citizen complaints.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sure will.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Mitchell.
Brian, on your safety study on Knapp Road, I've had several people along that road give me a call. I understand it's not posted, right?
NAF.
Speed limit?
You know, I don't think it is, no, sir. No, sir.
Is there any chance of getting it posted? That's a shortcut there. A lot of people are using that road, back and forth in the evenings and the mornings. And one of them referred to the 5 o'clock 500 coming through there. So
Yeah.
is there any chance of possibly getting it dropped down?
We can certainly look at what the last time it was studied If it's been in recent years, likely they wouldn't study it again, but I'll get that information for you. If it has been some time, and if we've noted any new development along that route, then we would potentially go ahead and look at it again. So let me get back to you on that.
It's getting on down past this Boone's Mill side of the Nass community there. It's awful curving. And
Right.
It's,
Oh, yeah.
pretty narrow through there.
I'm familiar with it, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Nick?
Brian, first I'd like to offer my condolences to all of y'all on the loss of Mr. Mason down there in the Snow Creek area. And if there's anything that, I know y'all are looking into, if there's anything that you think could be done on 619 there to,
Yeah.
people fly up and down that road. But I was going to ask you, how do you guys go about determining on trimming back brush off of trees? And I'm just going to use for an example, McNeil Mill Road, where the limbs and stuff are hanging back, and where it catches my attention. I went through there with a tractor on my gooseneck the other day, and goodness gracious,
Yeah.
those limbs were just smacking that thing all to pieces.
So typically we trim right away with basically pole saws, so we can reach up about 15 feet. Our goal is to clear somewhere between 15 and 20 feet, and we can come through with our boom axes and things like that to cut stuff back as well. So if we were on like a big cut section of roadway where things are higher, we can put the boom axe up there and get some of the lower things. But that's typically how we approach it. If we have to do like up on, well, I'm trying to remember, I think it was 122 and some other places, we actually hired out of, through our district contract with bucket truck and some folks to come through. And in fact, in Miss Smith's area, it was the passing zone just below Harmony School. We opened that passing zone up, but we don't have the equipment to reach up that high, but they were able to get in with the bucket truck and get that cleaned up all the way down to that curve at the Gills Creek.
Okay, Mike, take a look at that one where I'm talking on
McNeil Mill.
It's some pretty low laying branches there.
Will do.
Thank you.
Yep. Sir, we get it. But about this time of year, when the school buses get back on the road, we'll have a number of complaints, so we'll get right on them.
Anyone else have anything for Brian? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, Mr. Carter.
All right, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, so I am very appreciative of the recognition for Ferrum College today. As a resident myself, grew up in the Ferrum-Henry area and an alumnus of Ferrum College. It's wonderful to see. Certainly wish them all the best in their Division II and their future endeavors. Very much looking forward to getting to a football game here soon. So for our finance report, this is the start of a new fiscal year, so we're resetting everything essentially. And so this is July, 1 month out of the fiscal year, so about 8.3% is what we're going to expect to see. And so for an overall look at the general fund, we're at or above some of that on our what you would consider the monthly collected revenues. And so for the expenditures, we're at or below that, with the exception of the two areas that we always have trend higher because a lot of expenses are front-loaded based on insurance contracts, maintenance service contracts, those payments. They're all lump sum at the beginning of the fiscal year. So you're going to see that in general and financial administration and in your community development. That also houses all of the contributions that we have to our member organizations, our external agencies. A lot of those get front-loaded at the start of the year. So to graphically show that, you only have the one dot for July, the blue dot there. So you can see the revenues are trending a little bit above where they were last year. To graphically show that, the only one that's really out of a normal fluctuation or variance range is the state revenue. And looking at that, it looks to be mainly the social services reimbursement was significantly higher than it was in July of last year. Don't know really that there's a specific cause for it. Could be timing of the expenses, but that was about $500,000 more. So if you look at the difference between the state, that's what's causing your variation there. So likely a timing. So for sales tax, we did have a good month. And remember, on sales tax, it's 2 months behind when we receive it from the state. So this would be May sales taxes that we are collecting and receiving in July from the state. And so that's just under $713,000 that was collected, received in July. That's up about 8.8% year over year, $57,000. It's about 9.1% of the budget, which is good. We want 8.3% or above. So we're trending above budget projections at this point. Meals tax was a little below when we compare to last year, about 3.2%, but it's 11.4% of the budget. So we're trending well ahead of where we projected on the budget point in time as of last year. When I say that, it's only about $5,700 minus 3.2%, so not a big variance. Transient occupancy has rebounded, at least in July, from what we were seeing from the previous months of the prior fiscal year. And so you can see that it's up about 34% year over year. Again, that's only $16,000, but that would be June collections. They're 1 month behind typically. It's tough to really nail down because of all of the third-party sites that do these rentals. We don't really get a very good reporting of what month our revenue is for, from what I understand. So it is tough to really say all of that's June. Some of it could be catch-up, but it's a good month anyway for collection to start the fiscal year. So for general fund expenditures, you can again see the one blue dot for the month. They're a little higher than we had last year. We would expect that typically. We didn't have any drastic cuts to the budget. So to show year over year, you can see the categories. You would expect some trending up because of the 3% COLA. We do have some more information on health and welfare. You can see there's probably the highest variance on that. So when you can look at that, you see that you have some up on the social services side, but the big increase is CSA. Looking at that for CSA, we still through September have prior year invoices. So July, August, and September, we have open at the state level to pay prior year invoices and receive reimbursement. The biggest jump in that is we just are earlier this year and paying our prior invoices. Looks like we paid a significant amount of them in July instead of waiting till August and September. So that's just staff being proactive and trying to get those prior year invoices cleared out and paid. However, I know we've had some questions in the past on CSA expenses, so we have a couple of slides, just a little detail, and certainly take board feedback or questions. We have seen increases in the CSA program. So what we graphed out was a 10-year look. So that's about almost a 70% increase from 10 years ago. You can see where it went up and then it kind of leveled off and declined a little bit. We had a spike this year. I will say that the 2024 numbers, they're still gross and we're still working through that. So there are several likely reductions that will happen on that, mainly some reimbursed and recovered costs that we do. If you remember, we invoice the school system for private day. That's not netted against that number like the prior years. We'll have some others. So that'll get a little better. I want to make sure we're clear on that, but it's still a significant increase. And so to show that as a percentage, you can kind of see there, it seems to be a little cyclical, but you can see the spike in 2018. And then we made some adjustments and we had several years of level or no growth. But I will also say that during that period was the COVID pandemic. And so there was a lot of disruption in that environment. And there was a lot of rate setting at the state level, especially for private day. So now what has happened is the state is no longer rate setting. And I think you're starting to see that we're seeing double-digit increases in the rates for our private day costs specifically, but a lot of our services. And for us, that's not atypical of what the state is seeing. I know these are pressures statewide. We're seeing these, but did want to give you some level of insight into what's going on. We don't want you to think that we're not actively managing the program and there's nothing that can be done. It is what it is, and never like to have that attitude. Do want to say that what is driving the costs are foster care residential and private day school placements. Those are the most significant increases, and Why those numbers are significant is they also have the highest local match. So we have a 35% local match on that. So when those go up significantly, county local dollars, more of the county local dollars need to be used as our local match to fund them. So again, the prior fiscal year is still being finalized. There's a lot of adjustments because the state stays open till the end of September that will occur in the CSA program numbers. With our projections, it's still expected to increase about 45% from 2023. Private day school is driving a lot of that. That is driven by what's called an individualized education plan or program. And IEP, as you might hear that depending on if you're in any CPMT meeting or you hear from the school system. There's really no control in the CSA office over those. Those are federally mandated. They're federally driven. CSA does not have a seat at the table in how those plans are created. The parent is involved. The school staff are involved. Really, the only thing that happens with private day is the CSA office receives the form and they're told to pay it. And pretty much CSA processes it. So what we will do, though, and what we did do previously was invoice the local match to the school system on that portion for them to manage. And so that is built into the budget. We invoice them monthly on the local portion of the private day costs each month. We do want to point that changes are being implemented for service planning and discharge planning. So we did receive an update from the State Office of Children's Services. They had several areas of recommendation. And when I say several, that makes it sound bad. They had a few, and one of them was centered around discharge planning. And so we have made several adjustments. Of course, Ms. Smith is the board's representative on CPMT. We've had several different work groups, policy work group. We have what's called an Individualized Family Service Plan, IFSP. That is really the document that guides the services that CSA funds. So that has been revised to try and make improvement on the service planning at the table. And so those are going to be implemented starting in next month in September, but required and mandated for October. And so what that will do, at least, is bring back into the conversation the service planning and the actual need for services and the discharge planning so that we're not waiting till last minute. I think some of the things that we also want to see in managing these high-cost services, as I mentioned, they were the residential placements, private day school. We do plan to focus on prevention. What we are finding is, of course, on the state level, the reimbursement, prevention, community-based services are much lower. We have a 14% local match instead of a 35% local match. So if you're going to put your money in something, community-based and prevention is the better bang for your buck from the state reimbursement. What we're finding is twofold on that is that, one, there's not a lot of local services that are community-based that can be offered. So a lot of our kids get transported to Roanoke or further for some of these. It depends on the other services they have. But the other side to that is that in trying to work with, what you end up doing is you overload the local providers that are here. And so I know, Mr. Carter, you've mentioned Youth Connect. That tends to be one of the very few local providers that offer certain services. But we also want to put a priority on foster care, recruitment. I think that's probably, and that's a statewide issue. I don't want to think that's just Franklin County. But that is a statewide issue, but we do need probably to do more recruitment for either local foster homes or what's called a TFC, treatment foster home. And those are for the ones with kids who have a higher level of care needs. And so there will be more updates for the board as we move forward. Of course, we're getting into budget season. We'll have more, but want the board to know we are very well aware of the increase. We are making changes in the program for what we can and what we can manage, what we're not mandated to do or obligated or required. And so with that, if there are any other feedback, we will have an upcoming Friday packet for the board with more detailed information that really is not more than would fit in a PowerPoint presentation. So after that, be happy to answer any questions from the board, provide more information, feedback, so certainly be helpful as we move forward. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Could you go back to that graph you had up, please?
This one?
Nope. Back one more.
That one.
Can you explain to me how the fiscal year 17-18 goes from 24.93% to the fiscal year 18-19 being a negative 0.04?
If I remember, basically what happened is we cut significantly in community-based services that year to prioritize the absolute have-tos, and it was, and then that was okay for a year or two, but we did start to try and make some changes in that. What we were finding was a lot of kids were receiving the same services, whether they needed them or not. And if you'll find, I don't know, this happens in several sectors, but you'll get a buzzword. You'll get the flavor of the month. And so we took a hard look at those services after the 17-18 year, cut back on things that may not be necessary until we had better information. And so that's why you see a significant drop on that I can specifically point to. Now, sometimes it fluctuates depending on the kids in the program. There's a whole checklist that goes through in order for a child to be eligible or to be part of the program. We don't really drive that. That's driven by outside forces. We have several core agencies, Department of Social Services, Court Service Unit, School System, Health Department, Piedmont Community Services as our local community services board. Any number of those can have a child that shows up under there as a case for them, and then that enters the system. So what we can control, we try to do, but as far as the fluctuation in number of children or the services they need, that is more difficult for us to navigate.
And is that what would you attribute the same change in 22-23, 23-24? It's the same.
It's not the same increase. This time it's different. So this time it is family, it is residential placements, and it is private day. Private day was some of that number in 17-18. We made some adjustments, but really that's been a fairly level number if you were to look at private day. That was more community-based in 17-18. If I remember correctly, that's where we had a little bit more of ability to correct why you see the drop. In 23-24, it's been private day and residential, which are we seeing statewide. We have a couple of things that we'll see on private day. Foster care is a big driver. What's happening is there's not enough placements. So kids are getting sent wherever we'll take them. So they're going well out of the area, several to Richmond, Northern Virginia, even out of the state, because for their particular diagnosis or service needs, that's the closest we can find that will take them. So that's really a national, but certainly a statewide trend that we're seeing. But that's what's driving that 23-24 increase.
And I know you and I have had this conversation as to where these dollars, and you were talking about invoicing back between the county and the school for most of these CSA services. Are these dollars in the school budget, or are they? So we pay as the county the invoice. Now, as far as the school system, they should have budgeted in their line item a line item for local private day cost. We certainly invoice them. I'm assuming they're paying them, so I'm assuming they've budgeted for them. I believe if I remember from their line item budget, there was an item in there that I noted for that. We budget for the revenue on the county side. We fully anticipate when we balance our budget that we're going to receive that revenue from them to pay for the CSA program. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the board's benefit as a follow-up to Brian's comment about foster children, and I don't remember the acronym, but several years ago there was a program put in place where they try to put the children with another relative instead of in foster care, and the local DSS won a state, got real big accolades for doing that here locally, which is a big cost savings for the county.
Kinship.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes. And so that does, if that's a big state push, and so that's still working its way through CSA. Yes, sir. What can happen on that is the parent, well, depending on the parent, if they still have their rights, can decline. Also, the judge can still court order a different placement, and so we're seeing some of that too. But DSS has made that an effort. I know that's a statewide push, so that does help when we're able to place with kinship, fictive kin, as they call it as well. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just
Go
add
ahead.
one quick
Go ahead.
thing for the benefit of the board. I think you all have heard me say this before. there's a large portion of these cost increases that's being driven by vendor increases. They just have an open field to charge what they want, and you'll see in a few minutes, you all have made it clear that you want part of that to be on our legislative agenda. But the prices that we're seeing for our residential placement they're astronomical. And it's going to take the state legislature, I believe, to put some clamping down on that, because the localities are picking up the tab for that. And these increases are unsustainable on the locality level. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Yes, ma'am. They are, and it's a statewide issue. There were some areas that tried to be adjusted, but Ms. Smith is right. There's so little competition locally that we have very little ability as a locality to negotiate rates, because they'll say, well, we just won't take your kid, and guess what? I've got a wait list. And so it's balancing the cost with the needs of the child. But it is a pressure, budget pressure. The state needs to do more. And so hopefully we can make some headway on that this session. Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Thank you.
This is the same fund balance slide you've seen. We're still running through prior year numbers. Want to clear some things up with the school system and all their ESSER money for their construction project before we figure out where the final numbers lie. I'm very confident that we will have a surplus. We will bring, if you remember, we talked about rollover, so we've sent that to the departments. We will bring all of that back to you at your September meeting for review and recommendation for any year-end surplus. I will say, please keep in mind that we have about $2 million in deferred capital that was was part of the budget that wasn't funded. And so we have about $1 million that was planned for, that was in the adopted CIP, but then there's probably about $1 million that we cut out when we dropped from 45 cents to 43 cents. So staff is going to prioritize those deferred capital projects when we bring that back to the board, because those are certainly needs that didn't go away. So, but we'll have more on that for you at your next month's meeting. So real quick economic update. CPI increased 2.9% for July. That's the first time it's been below 3% in about 3 years. The biggest driver in what's driving that now is housing costs. And so you can't find a house. We know well of that from our reassessment and what the price of housing is doing. And so, in addition to record high interest rates. So that's still driving a big factor of the inflation for this month. The other thing we are keeping an eye on is the unemployment rate increase to 4.3% in July. So with all of that, the Federal Reserve left their rate unchanged at the July meeting. There's a lot of expectation that there will be a rate cut at the September meeting. We will see. They according to the Fed, they look at the unemployment as well as the inflation and the economy. I think for us as staff, as we're trying to look at this, it's just a matter of trying to guess when. Of course, we budget our interest earnings. We look at not just the interest earnings, but we also look at the cost of energy, utilities, all of these things. So any changes can happen quickly. So for us, we try to build the budget to be resilient to adjust to any of that should we need to during any fiscal year. So that, Ms. Vice Chair, be happy to answer any other questions.
All right. Anyone else have anything? I think you answered all the questions already. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brofman. John come to us today. He's going to talk to us about a topic that's, I know, fresh on everyone's mind, and that is dock safety at the lake.
Do it here.
John, I've said your name so many times over the last week. Your ears must be burning.
It's like Beetlejuice.
That's right.
Okay, work for me. Yeah.
Mr. Tatum, Mr. Whitlow, members of the board, thank you for having me today. Here to talk to you about this important topic of dock safety. I've just put together just a few slides for today in respect of your time. We have a much larger presentation that's available. Before I get started, just to let you know, the month of September, I plan on holding one many, however many is needed, public education events with local homeowners, dock builders, electricians going forward. Just to let you know that's in the works. So in July, Franklin County, Bedford, and Pennsylvania came together as building officials and our local fire marshals to discuss what can we do as government officials to make sure that we're ensuring that these docks are as safe as they can be according to the code. So we met the first day with just staff. We got direction and agenda. And then the following week, we invited several local electricians from each locality to join us in the conversation. We have developed a dock inspection checklist for our inspectors. I will absolutely share this. What I wanted to do, I was speaking with Ms. Smith. I want to get the best practices that we're working on, also with the inspection checklist, kind of give you a packet. Some of the local organizations are going to help us spread the education. We're happy to answer any questions. Any of the three building officials, we're all on the exact same page. We're going to enforce consistently. The only thing we're doing anything different at the moment is Bedford decided to move full steam ahead day one. I'm a big fan of education, so I wanted to get the education out to our local contractors, our dock builders, first before putting the pedal to the metal. That does not mean that it's any more unsafe at the moment than it will be in the next coming weeks. We're just going to have a definitive, this is how we're doing it in all three localities. Doesn't matter who you talk to, this is how it's done. So moving forward, what you'll hear is electrical shock drowning. And basically that's like being in a bathtub and throwing a hairdryer in there. But what happens is, just like with the young gentleman that lost his life in Bedford over July the 4th holiday, when the coroner checks that person out, they're found to have drowned. So it's not necessarily electrocution death, because there's really no signs of the electrocution, just the intake of water into the lungs. So it's considered a drowning, not an electrical drowning, even though the electrical was present. So you'll hear this term tossed around a lot, but it is the effects of anything 6 volts and higher. So 6 volts doesn't sound like a lot, but extended exposure to that type of voltage can doesn't paralyze you, but it numbs you. When you try to swim, you may not be able to operate as you normally would. So it could cause you to go under, and if you can't swim, then ultimately you could drown. This is not just our lakes, it's home ponds, home lakes, farm lakes. If it has electricity to the dock, it is very important. The electrical shock hazard is present, so it's not just the lakes, just to let you know. We do, on occasion, like if a home is built and there's a pond on the property, the dock is present, they're wanting electrical to it, we would inspect that exactly the way we would on Smith Mountain Lake. So if you notice this electrical testing device, after the investigation was done by law enforcement, the building inspector's office from Bedford was allowed back onto the property, and they did their own test. And they have one lead in the water, one lead to the boat cradle. And as you noticed, the reading is 116 volts. So that's like jumping in the water with an electrical cord. I've used that analogy before, or a hairdryer. When the gentleman went in the water, he was immediately shocked, paralyzed more than likely, and wasn't able to swim on his own and ultimately drowned. The second gentleman jumped in with enough force to push himself away from the dock area, yelled back to the third friend and said, turn the power off. I'm getting electrocuted. So luckily the third friend hadn't jumped in as well, or they could all three lost their lives. So some premises wiring issues or power surges. You hear the words stray current or dirty voltage. Those things are typically from the utility company, nobody in particular, it's all of them, it's not just ours. It usually comes through on the neutral conductor. Not trying to be electrical on you today, but that current finds its way into the lake. And so there's discussion, we're even trying to get our local utility, AEP, to come in and discuss with us of ways that they can help defend against that as well. We have not yet had that conversation with them. So constant weathering, wave action, moisture, just consistent deterioration being around the lake itself. And the biggest thing is making sure, over the years, just like with this dock where the gentleman lost his life, there were several remodel situations, several additions, several electrical additions to the dock that were not documented as permitted or inspected. So it may or may not have been wired properly. It's obvious that it wasn't, because that boat cradle should not have been energized. There's no way. We do a thing called bonding. So if you bond the motor, the lift, all that stuff on that, that should never see a fault current. If it does, it goes back to the proper place, proper location. There's going to be signage on the approach side coming from the shore and the water side. Just warning of a potential shock hazard. This is language straight out of the code. We are currently working on a local vendor. That way, when we are enforcing this, people are like, well, where can I get this signage? Also, with our GIS coordinator, Eric Schmidt, he's also promoting, and I absolutely agree and encourage, that we add addressing to the docks as well. And it could be an address from the residents, same on the dock. If someone says, he uses analogy, they're not from the area, but they're doing a short-term rental, and they're like, I'm in trouble, I'm having trouble, I need EMS. Well, where are you located? Well, I don't know, I come out of Becky's Creek and turned left, and I'm in a cove adjacent. Well, that could be anywhere. So the addressing would absolutely help first responders to get to them quickly. No way, shape, or form, we are a recreational lake, so no way, shape, or form are we going to ask anybody to put up signage saying that you cannot swim around your dock. But we are going to provide the best practices and the do's and don'ts, and let them be adults. Sometimes we can be adults. The only thing I'll add is the education in September. The signage, the electrical stuff we're going to discuss with the local electricians. And like I said before when I started this, they're no less safe now. As long as they're getting inspected, they're safe. It's the folks that don't get permits and don't get it inspected is the possibility of issues. So going forward, it's just going to make sure that all three sides of the lake are getting enforced equally the same. Exactly from the code, nothing really made up. We're not making up our own rules. Any questions from the board?
Go ahead, Lori.
John, can you just touch on, when you presented at TLAC, my chief concern was that there be a single point of entry, if you will, for citizens to know if there's a place they can call or look online or what have you, if they have an issue or if they want to inquire what to do about an issue. Can you briefly speak about what that's going to look like?
Yes, once we get this packet together, we're absolutely going to put it on our website. We'll more than likely try to push it out through social media with Kevin. It'll also be through the local community organizations. We'll hand out pamphlet type or one-page documents to where people are not looking through 50 pages. They get this one page. It tells them everything they need to know, what to look for. Some encouragement that's going to probably end up on there is do not swim around your dock with the boat cradle in the water. I would recommend turning the power off to your dock if you can so do it while your family's swimming around the dock. One of our staff members, he has a large family and he's on the lake, and he has grandchildren, children. Just a few weeks ago he had like 15, 18 people at his home, and they were all swimming around the dock, and he's like, John, what should I do? And I was like, if it was my dock, I would actually, even if I know it's perfect, I would actually turn the power off to it and use a battery-powered radio if I wanted some music at the dock. You can turn it back on when you get back out to raise and lower your boat or whatever you need. But the point of contact will be website, social media, local action groups. Also, boots on the ground, educating. We're also going to be doing the code update training here in the coming weeks as well, because we're getting ready to go into the 2021 cycle. So it will be in-person meetings for education as well. For tourists in the area, we're going to try to make sure that is available everywhere they go, wherever the folks can help us distribute it. We've already been offered from several folks that they would help do that.
Yeah, and just for the board's knowledge, TLAC, we have discussed, we cover 4 counties. That's our footprint, and as such, we're going to be working hand in hand with John to make sure that at TLAC that we can, as an example, have the information. We'll have a portal on there for this, reference numbers and links to the information. So we're going to, really attack this from that multi-county footprint, which I'm hoping will help. And then, so we would say you can contact TLAC or your building inspector's office, John?
Yes, absolutely.
At this point?
Yep.
Okay.
John, I wondered on that incident that happened where you were able to determine that there was a lot of current in the water. Was it anybody's responsibility to diagnose exactly why that occurred, to go back and do a root cause analysis and figure out, okay, why did we have so much current in the water? It seems like a really good case study to come out of it and learn what happened. I know you can talk about turning off the power, but it seems like there was some kind of installation problem there. And if we could get to the bottom of that, people could look at their own dock and assess whether they have that problem or not, right?
Absolutely. So the local building official for Bedford, Will Goodwin, he said that they were going to do a study themselves on it to see, try to go back and track and trace. I'm sure that any investigators that were doing investigations on the property will try to find out the root cause of that as well. If I get an update on that, I'll be happy to share that. At the moment, I don't have any answers for that. One thing on the do's and don'ts as well, local electrician went into a cove the week before we met. And that's kind of what sparked these meetings and, discussion with the local contractors as well. Was he's like, John, I went over to a friend's house to inspect a dock, and there happened to be 4 or 5 docks in the same cove, relatively close to each other. And he ended up inspecting all of them and doing current checks on each one of them. He said all of them had 4 to 6 volts. Not one of them were 0. So it shows us that we have a larger problem. I've said this before, I don't think we'll ever solve the issue because there's too much weekend warrior wiring versus someone that's very transparent, getting permits, getting things inspected. There's also accidental faults that happen that you really can't defend against. Stray current is one of them. It just kind of happens. So the main objective is to educate as much as possible, follow the code as closely as we can, and make sure that we're having very high-quality inspections done. One thing I will add, Lisa Cooper and her team are taking a look at short-term rentals according to the docks. There's discussion that if the short-term rental includes a dock, that would be required to be inspected by a third-party licensed electrician. The short-term rental inspector is not really licensed or certified to do so. We don't want to create a liability for the county, of course. It is certainly important for the utmost safety of the patron, whoever's visiting our beautiful locality, our local residents. One of the do's and don'ts that's going on the list is we would encourage that you would have your dock looked at every 5 years just to make sure there's not a wire that got accidentally, maybe you moved kayaks in and out and you accidentally grazed a wire and it made a open conductor, to where it can transfer power to metal parts or whatever. So we're going to have a pretty comprehensive list of best practices to go along with the education part.
Are all docks required to have an independent grounding rod just for the dock rather than relying on the grounding rod that goes with the house?
Yes, sir, and that's exactly what we're putting together right now. So we're going back to, for years, the shore disconnect. The disconnect for the dock was on the shore. The code actually allows it all the way back at the house. Well, that might be 500 yards away. Nuisance trips, whatever, people would actually probably take the GFCI breaker out because they do what they do on Saturdays. So our efforts are, okay, let's make it easy for the owner or the people at the dock. let's put it back on the shore, back away from the water, of course, and actually use 2 ground rods. That ground system is there. The main breaker comes down to that disconnect, and then you can have your service panel on the dock.
So last question. Anytime you have electricity near water in the house, you have a ground fault protector. Is there a way to use a ground fault protector system at the dock to eliminate some of the problem?
Everything is going to be GFCI'd.
But it's not
ground
today.
fault protected. Everything on the dock.
But it's not today.
It is today.
Everything is ground fault protected.
The only change to the code was a 30 milliamp sensitive device to 100 milliamp, so it makes it more sensitive. The problem we're finding, the local supply houses cannot get the 100 milliamp. So if they use a specific, that's a GFIP type device. I'm not an electrician, but the GFCI protection, we're saying if you can't find that, if you do GFCI breaker, that actually adds just an extra level of protection that's not required by the code. You're going above the code at that point. But that device is accessible to get. Where the other one that's specified in the code is, they can't find it. And I've had a dozen electricians call me about it.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
How about the manufacturing end of it? I don't have a boat, I have a cradle or a boat, anything like that. It's like there's got to be some way you keep any middle parts out, like nylon straps, something with weights on it to take it down and raise it up. Has anybody thought about talking into manufacturers?
There has been discussion about that just recently. How can we do basically an isolation to not have the metal parts in the water? That is an ongoing discussion that we are looking into and discussing as a team. We don't have any answers at the moment, but reaching out to the manufacturers is a great idea.
They can talk to any engineers.
No engineers. I was a part of the state committee. Prior to COVID, there was a stray current committee developed, Department of Housing, NFPA, all these different organizations, and I was invited to be on that committee. We were really diving into that very heavily when COVID hit, so it disbanded the committee and it never reorganized. But some of the comments there was one comment back during that time is to remove the equipment grounding conductor. I know you'll understand what I'm saying. That's a no-go from an inspector standpoint because we're making it super unsafe. Someone will lose their life if we do that. But the statement was that they're removing all the stray current voltage from that dock by removing that equipment grounding conductor. That's a true statement, but when you remove that, you become the ground. So with all that being said, I will take that under advisement and share it with our group as far as, how far can we dig in and get the manufacturer to help us. Because these are lakes all across the world probably, but definitely the United States. It's not just localized to Smith Mountain, it's all lakes.
I've got a neighbor that just put in a hot tub, and when they hooked the thing up, I think it was about 6 point something volts on it. We drove some rods around it, got it down to 2 point something. Couldn't clear it from there, so he got AEP involved, and he had a transformer coming to it. They came, did some work on the transformer, they could find it, stray voltage. Last they said, it's your neighbor, we're still looking. So it's a problem. It's like a needle in a haystack.
Yes, sir, it certainly is. Even if you do everything correctly, I don't know if you heard what he was saying, your neighbor could have a fault current going into the lake. Our power company is generating power in the lake, so there's electricity in the lake. That's why it won't ever be 100% figured out and decided, this is the magic answer. We can do the best that we can do, collectively as well. I think a unified effort is the best effort to make sure that the entire lake is getting served the same exact way. Yes, sir.
All right. Anyone else have anything for John?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Sheriff Overton's going to be here to give us an update on the SROs. Sheriff, if you need any time to get set up or anything, we're going to take about a 10-minute break, so a brief update on the SRO program and the status and where we're going on there. Sheriff?
Excellent. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Board members, it's good to be with you all today. I'll have to admit I was a little giddy back there when you was recognizing Firm College today. Brought back a lot of memories. My wife was alumni of Firm, but I remember when I was a young boy of 10, 11, 12, back in the 69, 1970, and 71, I had the privilege of being invited up there by Jim Linnane to be a ball boy during a lot of Hank Norton's Dynasty years, and that was quite an experience for a young boy at that time. Also, I wanted to mention, too, with Firm's criminal justice program, and we recently, within the last 24 months, have hired 2 student athletes from Firm College that have been a superb addition to our organization. Zion Wade and Sam Messer both played football at Ferrum. Both are from North Carolina and could have very easily decided to return to North Carolina and follow their law enforcement careers, but loved Franklin County, decided to stay here, and we're glad to have them both on our staff. I want to thank the board before we even get started, because we talked about SROs for a long period of time. Thank Mr. Whitlow and his staff for going back many years of discussing the importance we felt at that time, and went through some horrible, tragic events across our nation that certainly brought us to the place we are now. But I want to thank the board for your commitment, because I know it was a hefty commitment. And I want to thank the school board for their due diligence of working with us through this opportunity, and Dr. Sears. It was amazing last Friday at convocation when all the teachers gathered on last Friday, and Assistant Superintendent Overstreet recognized the School Resource Officer program, and the resounding applause that we received for the appreciation to you and to the Office of the Sheriff for providing, in the county, for providing that service. It's obvious it means a great deal to those teachers and staff. Very quickly, I want to run through these just very quickly, and I'll answer any questions you have. We know we're on a grant funding cycle. We know that it is a cost to you all right now. That is a matching grant. I think we're paying 46% a year. One of the particular grants, we've been very blessed that they've waived the ending maturity of that grant for the past 2 years, so we've not had to pay for that first grant full 100% until that will come up in July of 2025. The other 6 members will be July of 26, and then I think final 7 would be come to maturity of July 2027. So we know that there's a cost coming. I think Mr. Whitlow reminds you all of that quite often. But I want to say, too, that through that, this year, we did receive a $40,000 grant from DCJS, and we were able to meet the in-kind match to that grant because we had provided vehicles for these SROs, and that was considered our in-kind match. But we received $40,000, which helped us equipped where those individuals that were going into the school system would have the laptops, and where several of those computers we had to take off the road, we were able to replenish those computers. So now all our staff continues to have the computers and the necessary tools. That was a big part of that $40,000. We did some training with that as well, and we've also utilized them to put some safe locks in the school system. So we're continuing to work through that, trying to get funding anywhere we can. I know in talking with a couple of our delegates, and Senator Stanley, it was mentioned at our Ag Fair at the opening ceremony. I know that our delegates and Senator are and will continue to find ways to fully support funding for school resource officers. That is one of the legislative things I think is on the agenda, because it definitely is a hardship on localities for that funding. Sadly, and I just cannot say enough to this board, I did a little looking up and research. I think across the nation, there's about a little under 50% of schools that have full-time SROs across our nation. So there's a lot of work to be done across the nation. I would say the Commonwealth of Virginia in a whole has done a very good job of, and in particular in this part of the state, that most of the schools do have school resource officers. Safety, safety, safety. The Webster Dictionary defines that as the condition of being protected, and that is our theme. These staff and these students and parents are expecting that from our staff and those that sit before you today to provide that safety foremost to these students, and that's what we are called upon, and that is our resonating theme. In doing that, how do we achieve the safety? We have our Intrado, which is our new alert system that's in place, and thankfully with Intrado we were able to introduce, I didn't bring my phone up to the podium, but now the teachers not only can react to an active shooter incident from their desk in their classrooms, but now they have an app on their phone where if there was an incident, they could go to their cell phone and alert. This is a great tool for us to have. Thank you all for your support in that measure. We've conducted and will continue, but we started this summer working on school building security assessments, and that's going into each of our elementary schools and doing an assessment of safety and other physical things about the building that our team has noticed that needs to be corrected. The school has been very supportive and had members on these teams as well. These teams not just arbitrarily go out there, they have received training to specifically look at these different facilities and highlight specific from experts as to what we're looking for as to safety in the buildings. We continue to provide training for the teachers and the school staff as to the Intrado system, how it works. We teach the advanced law enforcement rapid response training. That is what we are called to do, and that is the training we receive when we're responding to the call of an active shooter. So we work with our teachers and the school staff to continue to do that. We are continuing to build strong partnerships with the Department of Social Service and Juvenile Court Services. They have come along as great partners for us in regarding incidents that require law enforcement investigation of students that are in our school systems. And I do pride ourselves because a lot of school systems, in particular in Northern Virginia back during COVID, they were actually removing SROs from their school division because of this theory of presence of law enforcement being some type of a pipeline for juvenile activity that leads them to be introduced to the court system in a negative way. We do not feel that way. We're going to respond and answer to any illegal activity or criminal activity that occurs, but we're working closely with the juvenile court system as far as diversion programs depending upon the offenses and what occurs, and I'm thankful for that partnership we have at this time. This new school year, I'm very excited. We are introducing the DARE program back into our school system, which is targeting our fifth graders, and that is on education and the perils and things that drugs can create and the havoc and the problems they can create. So we're excited about that. Carolina Knotts, where's Carolina? She is going to be our DARE instructor this year until we can get a couple other of our SROs trained in that program, so she's very excited. I'll have to say that Assistant Superintendent Overstreet and Ms. Brenda Muse have been ecstatic, and the principals have worked very well with us in trying to make sure that we've allotted time to teach this program. We're also starting a cadet program at the high school for 14-year-olds to 18-year-olds. This will be somewhat of a club activity, but a little bit more than that, because we will be inviting those that sign up for this program to come into the sheriff's office and go through an academy, as you would say, introducing them to all of the aspects of criminal justice, what we do, the different aspects of the judicial system, and hoping to be able to utilize them then as interns and with special events such as the Ag Fair, whether it's traffic control, whether it's just being liaison of helping people, parking, or whatever it may be. So we're very excited about this program, and we think we're going to have a good show. Our goal is to get about 30 students into that, and so we will be over there as soon as school starts this week in the cafeterias sharing brochure and information. There'll be a little bit of an enticement. I mean, when we're talking, and our people, such as Zion and Sam Messer and others in our organization, will be there. We'll be talking about those things that really pique students' interest, forensic science and those type elements, and really introduce them and to delve into some of those technical special traits that we have, again, trying to get them interested, and also letting them know, again, if you pursue a career or continue your schooling outside Franklin County High School, we're part of the Virginia Sheriff's Association, who provides a $1,000 scholarship each year. $1,000 doesn't seem like a lot in the spectrum of how much college is, but every little bit counts as far as parents are concerned. So there's definitely some benefit there for that. The last thing that I'd like to introduce this year and do a little bit better job of is our educational program for students and parents, and addressing safety in particular, drugs certainly, and then the big one is the exploitation of children, whether that be through human trafficking, whether that be through bullying, whether that is through a multitude of things introduced that's could be introduced through the internet, and in particular through artificial intelligence, as we deal more with that. So we're trying to really get a lot of dialogue started with our parents and students as well as we do that. Having said that, before I make introductions and end my little update to you all, is there any questions any of you all have regarding our SRO program?
Go ahead.
Sheriff, thank you for being with us today. And I've already said I feel safe, so safe in here today with all of these officers with us. Do we at this point have all of the schools covered in Franklin County moving into the new school year?
We do. With the closing of Burnt Chimney and Henry, we were relegated back to 15 SROs through the 14 through the grant. One is paid through, it has been for several years, as you well know, through the school system, picking that up. So we do have each school covered. We have 2 at the high school, 2 at the middle school. We find out very quickly that you have to improvise and change and do a lot of things. Unfortunately, he's not with us today. One of our SROs, Keith Grantham, is going to have 2 pretty serious surgeries coming up, so he will not be with us certainly through this part of the year, and we're having to pull somebody into his place, but we've managed to get that done. So yes, we have someone in every school.
And of the security checks that you've done with the schools, you said that you all had notated there were some vulnerable areas or things that needed to be taken care of. Are those things in place now for the beginning of the school year, or is it going to take like capital funding moving forward?
There's still some other schools that we're doing, but the schools that we did address, they are being taken care of, yes. And some of them were very minor, just small things that unfortunately, you know, as people see them, they realize that needs to be fixed, whether it's a door lock or something. But we've kind of taken the approach, and the school has been very accepting, and certainly from the higher echelon down, those things can be a major ordeal, as we saw in Uvalde, Texas, where it appears a door was entered through. So yes, they are, and we continue to do those assessments. And Dr. Sears is very in tune to making sure we do that.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for that. I do. There was an article today in today's paper, and I found it interesting. And maybe I think it was the Roanoke Times, and they haven't reached out to us yet. But new school year, certainly are talking to what is on the agenda for school divisions as it relates to safety. And it piqued my interest that when the news media comes around, everything kind of revolves around safety, and rightfully so. When the amount of monies that are being expended from SROs to cameras to radio systems and all. So, but yes.
I know you all work very hard to bring the program to fruition and to staff it, and we're very appreciative of those efforts.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone? Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. That cadet program you all are starting with the school system, I think that's fantastic. And I want to tell all your staff how much I appreciate what you do for the county and I've always been very proud of our sheriff's department. And as a follow-up, if you need a little money, my parents have been sick recently, so I've been making a lot of trips back and forth to Roanoke. Get on 220 and get in that left-hand lane and write some tickets to those people going 50 miles an hour. It's driving me crazy. Thank you all so much for coming today.
Anyone else? Nick, Marshall, Dan? Sheriff, I just want to thank you for coming and say thank you to your staff. SROs, as you know, has a warm spot in my heart. One of the most rewarding times of my entire career in law enforcement was the 12 years that I spent at the high school. And for you men and women that are serving as SROs, you have a unique opportunity to make some contacts. You might not appreciate those contacts right now, but 5 years from now, when they come up and speak to you, and just give you an example, in 2015, when I was running for office with the Board of Supervisors, I went up and knocked on a door. A young man came to the door, and he spoke to me right off. "Officer Tatum, how are you doing today?" And I'm like, oh boy, I don't recognize him from Adam. And he said, "You don't know me, do you?" I said, "I'm having a hard time." He said, "You arrested me several times when I was in high school." I said, uh-oh, I can see where we're going. And he said, "You probably saved my life." And he said, "I just got my voting rights back a couple of weeks ago, and I'd be tickled to death to vote for you."
Wow.
And but just remember, you're not only protecting those lives, but you're making contact. You're making a lasting impression on our most valuable resource, our children. And my hat goes off to you. And just hang in there. I know the days get long, the days get tough. Sometimes you're going to wonder, why do I do this? Nobody appreciates what I'm doing. I'm getting pulled in every direction, but we appreciate you, and we support you, and we're going to support you. And Sheriff, thank you again.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce him if I could, so you
Absolutely.
could just have a face.
Yes.
And I want to say this too, from what you were saying, Mr. Tatum. I appreciate it so much. I've worked with these individuals, some longer than others, but I'll have to say they know the importance of this job. And I do believe their heart's desire is, if something goes down in that school, that they would lay their lives down for those student and staff. I do believe it with all my heart. And one of the things I said to this board, and I meant it, and we've worked on it, was proficiency in the weapons that will save lives, and that is our firearms. And this group has worked above and beyond to make sure that they're reaching those proficiency. We pray that we never have to even pull those weapons out of our holster, but if we do, we want to make sure it's for the intended target, nobody else is injured, and we do it without hesitation to save lives. And I'm so proud of them in that regard. First off, I'd like to introduce, if he'll come on up, Captain Terry Dameron. Captain Dameron is in charge of our special operations, and this is a division that falls under him. Next is Lieutenant Eric Ingram. Eric is the supervisor for our SROs. Eric's been with the Sheriff's Office for many, many, many years. So excited about his excitement and what he's doing, and especially with this cadet program. I think Eric's going to do an amazing work for us there. At the high school is Master Deputy Sandra Ingram. Deputy Chad Houston at the high school. Middle school, Deputy Cody Noakes. Deputy Carolina Knotts, Liam Wade. Deputy Joe Woolridge, Rocky Mount Elementary. Master Deputy Chris Johnson, Glade Hill. Deputy Callie Dungan, Sontag Elementary. Deputy Amber Mitchell, Callaway. I mentioned Master Deputy Keith Grantham. Keith's not with us today. Deputy Christy Witt, Windy Gap. Deputy Suzanne Moses, Dudley. And we have 3 part-time. Deputy Tim Taylor, who retired from the sheriff's office with probably close to 30 years service. Deputy Travis Whitaker, who just retired back in June with Travis, 28 years. And then we've got Deputy John Brazil, who retired from the Virginia State Police. We're glad to have John with us. John's a military and provides a lot of service to us in that area as well. So, here's our group. We're ready to serve, and thank you all again for your commitment. And we're going to do our utmost to do what we're called to do and make you all proud of what we're doing.
Thank you,
Thank
Sheriff.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
You're going to be famous.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Sheriff.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to change the lineup a little bit, and we're going to skip over the legislative agenda discussion. We're going to move it to later on. This time, the dog park project. Brandy Rosser, Assistant County Administrator. You're going to provide some updated information on the proposed dog park.
All right, good afternoon, Vice Chairman, members of the board. Last month, you all were given a presentation on the potential creation of a dog park for the county. Our Parks and Rec Director, Paul Chapman, and Recreational Development of Franklin County member Reba Dillon provided some great information on dog parks and how they can benefit a community. And this presentation is going to continue on that conversation, but also highlight some of the benefits of what are the typical amenities you see in this park and the types of costs that are associated with those. You have an executive summary in front of you that does have a lot of information. My presentation is basically going to walk you through that executive summary because there is a lot of information. Just very quickly, the items that are going to be discussed during this update are going to be, like I said, the benefits of a dog park, the amenities, construction, and maintenance of a facility, the considerations of park sites, and then our path moving forward. Very quickly, some of the benefits that most parks realize is it's one of the more highly requested facilities, so it really does make a large portion of a population happy. So you see a lot of requests for dog parks and splash pads, facilities such as those. You see improved dog socialization, boosted physical health for dogs, increased human socialization that really creates an enhanced sense of community, promotion of an active lifestyle for not just the dogs but the owners as well. And it attracts new people to your community. It's kind of one of those, if you build it, they will come. Mm-hmm. So you build this type of facility, it's not just going to be your local community that's coming to it. You're really going to draw in people from a larger audience. And finally, this would be a unique facility for the county as we do not have a dog park in our system at this time. So what are your typical amenities that you're going to be looking at? Obviously, your fencing. You'll have double gated entries. And basically, that's you'll come in the first gate with your pet on a leash. You'll take the dog off of the leash, open the second gate, and it'll allow them to enter into the larger park. You will have your designated areas for small and large dogs. You'll have an appropriate surfacing material. We'll kind of touch on that in just a second. Preferably, you will have a shaded area so that you're not too hot while you're in the park, and also areas where pets can also be in the shade. A drinking fountain and a yard hydrant. The yard hydrant would be for maintenance purposes. Then you'll have your typical park amenities, benches, trash receptacles, pet waste stations, signage, an accessible parking area with a pathway to the park. Other items to consider would be restrooms, whether those are temporary or permanent, and also agility equipment is a very popular amenity. So what are you really looking at when you consider the construction costs of a dog park? The preferred fence would be a 6-foot vinyl 6-gauge chain link fence. For the size of park that we're kind of looking at, we're looking at about $35,000 to $40,000 most likely. That does include your double gate, your maintenance gate, and the designated areas I mentioned on the last slide. Surfacing material, last month it was mentioned that the preferred surface material would be a washed stone dust. The cost of that would really be kind of to be determined until we figure out what the exact size of the park is going to be. It does run about $40 per ton. A shade structure, again, that would to be determined depending on the type of shade that we select. It could be a fabric shade, it could be a permanent structure such as a gazebo or a shelter. It would kind of depend what our budget's going to be, honestly. A drinking fountain and a yard hydrant, we're looking about $5,000 to $7,000 for those items. You will have concrete pads in that double gated entry. That surface is typically concrete. And you also have pads for like your fountain, bench areas, and other amenities. For benches, we'd look at 2 to 4 benches, so around $2,000 to $4,000. Trash receptacles, again, 2 to 4, with a price tag of $2,000 to $4,000. Pet waste stations, probably 4, so you'll be around $2,000. And then you'll have your signage that's basically going to outline your hours of operation, your rules for the facility, and contact information if there's an issue. We'll have an accessible parking area, roughly 10 to 20 spaces. The cost of that's really going to kind of be up in the air until we decide if it is 10 or if it is 20. Is it going to be gravel or is it something that we would want to pave? Perimeter landscaping and buffers. Those are typically desired to kind of screen you from adjacent properties. It also helps keep down some of the noise. And then we'll look at the VDOT commercial entrance. This could be a low volume entrance, but it's going to need the engineered plan either way. And that plan is really going to have a traffic narrative that will include your left and right turn analysis, intersection and stopping site distances, and any drainage impacts to the right of way. So just the engineered plan is going to be around $2,000. And finally, if water is present, the water connection fee is going to be a minimum of $8,000. There's a variety of maintenance and operations tasks that we'll have to consider. It'll be like the regular inspections of your gates, fencing, walkways, and site amenities, annual inspection of water sources if present, regular inspection of surfacing materials. Dogs are going to be digging holes in this daily. It's something that you're really just going to have to watch and repair as needed. Removal of garbage, debris, weeds, and dog waste. Disposal of dog waste, which seems like a no-brainer, but when speaking with Jeff Golden, we can't just bag this material up and take it to a collection site. It's treated as, or considered untreated, like raw waste. So it would have to be taken to the landfill every time we wanted to dispose of the pet waste. Similar situation at the animal shelter. We installed what's basically a macerating toilet where it grinds up pet waste because we can't throw it in the dumpster. We would have to empty trash receptacles at least twice a week. Empty the pet waste stations, preferably daily, just to keep like any kind of odors down. And we'd have to definitely restock that. People have a tendency to walk up to your pet waste stations and just take 5 or 6 bags just for future usage. You go through them very quickly. We need to inspect and maintain landscaping and stormwater ponds or structures present. Inspect and maintain any type of shelter structure that's installed. Maintain and ensure proper visibility of rule and safety signage as required. Report any incidents such as vandalism, safety issues, or misuse of the park. And work with volunteers if applicable to oversee the proper usage of the park and also the rule enforcement. I think previously we reported around $10,000 or so annually for this maintenance. That is a 2021 number, so I would probably anticipate that's going to go up a little bit, but it's a decent ballpark for what this might cost. So staff kind of looked into 3 just potential sites. The first one is the one we discussed mainly last month, and that is the property that's adjacent to the Lake Watch collection site. The total acreage for that parcel is 16.653, and it is zoned Planned Commercial Development, or PCD. It is included in the Lake Watch Plantation Master Plan and designated as an office or technology park. One of the attachments to your executive summary is a copy of that master plan that is going to highlight both this site and also what I will call Site B. Some of the property details: it is located off Lake Watch Center Drive. That road is not currently in the state system. That process is ongoing right now, but as of today, it is not in the system. We will need the VDOT commercial entrance. Your traffic generation at the site is going to determine if it's going to be low volume or not. We will be required to have the engineer site plan, which is going to include your turn lane analysis and your intersection stopping site distances, along with any kind of drainage impacts that might occur to the right-of-way. The site would require a rezone to change the conceptual plan and to meet the land use of a dog park. So that process, as you guys are very familiar with, would require the 2 public hearings, one at the Planning Commission level, one at the board level, take roughly 60 to 90 days. We would also have to have a minor site plan drawn up. Depending on the size of the park, we would need an engineered plan for erosion and sediment control and or stormwater. Just a reminder, the E&S permit is triggered anytime you disturb over 10,000 square feet, which this facility clearly would. The stormwater permit would be anything over 1 acre. So the pros of this site: your water and electric service are present. The parcel is very flat and very open. Cons of the site: it has been master planned as an office or technology park. Rezoning would be required, and the area we would be using for the park would likely need to be subdivided from the whole parcel because we don't want to rezone everything. So we would have to subdivide that to rezone the land specifically being used for the dog park. And finally, there is definitely no shade down there, so there would have to be some shade structures and landscaping included. Potential Site B is going to be the other Lake Watch property that's located behind the Lake Watch Plantation shopping area. Again, it's roughly 19 acres, the whole parcel, zone PCD. This property was also in the master plan, but this one was designated specifically for a county recreation park. Again, it's located off Lake Watch Drive, which is another road that is not in the state system. As with the last property, it would need the VDOT commercial entrance. I won't go over those requirements again, but they are the same as the last one. It could potentially require additional traffic analysis. And there are other recreational uses occurring at the site, including the disc golf course, which is currently under construction, but there is adequate acreage for additional uses as well. Details on the size of the park, or depending on the size of the park, the project again would need the engineered plan for E&S and stormwater. The pros of the site: it has been master planned as a recreational park. It could co-locate with the disc golf course or any other recreational amenities that are on the property, allowing for sharing of amenities such as parking areas or restrooms if they were to be placed there. The site is wooded, so it could provide the shade needed for this facility. The cons of the site would be that the road leading to the site would need to be upgraded. I will say there's grant funding available, including recreational access funds, that could assist with that upgrade. There's no water or electrical service present at the site. And finally, the land would need to be cleared. That would require some work, but it could also allow us, like I said, to keep some of the landscaping for shade. And finally, potential Site C is going to be the Smith Farm, and this is going to be near the trailhead for the Lovely Valley Loop Trail. The whole parcel is 395 acres, and it's zoned agricultural, or A1. The master plan is currently being revised for the Smith Park, so the dog park could easily be incorporated into this site. It is located off Lovely Valley Road, which is in the state system. It will not need a VDOT commercial entrance. That entrance was already in place from the Trailhead Parking Area project. Again, E&S and stormwater permits would be dependent upon the size of the park. Our pros of the site would be that the use aligns with the restrictions that the property is to be used for recreation, conservation, and education. We could co-locate with the Lovely Valley Loop Trail, allowing for sharing of amenities such as the parking area. It is wooded. There's an adjacent tree line that could provide the shade needed for the park. And it's a large property, so if we determined that this wasn't the appropriate place at the park for a dog park, we could easily move it to another area of the parcel. And finally, the road leading to the site is less traveled than sites A and B. The cons of the site, again, are no water or electric service present, and it is slightly off the beaten path. It's kind of back in there a little bit. So looking at what funding is available for the construction and maintenance of the park, the Recreational Development of Franklin County, which is the nonprofit group, has raised $15,483 for the facility. Greatly appreciate that. They've done a lot of hard work to try and bring this facility to Franklin County. As far as Franklin County capital funds, we do not have any funding allocated for this park at this time, and we do not have any operating funds dedicated to it. So looking forward, some of the questions I feel like we need to consider. Is the county committed to moving forward with the construction of a dog park? And if the answer to that question is yes, where do we want it to be located? Once we decide a location, we really need to get into how large we want this park to be, because that's going to determine how much money either we or another group is going to have to raise for the capital and operating funds to build and maintain the park. Using the town's new dog park as an example, it's about 1/4 of an acre. Their fence is only 4 feet high, so we would have a higher fence and a much greater area. Their surfacing material is natural grass. We'll be looking to not do grass. There's no shade at that facility. There's no landscaping or buffers, and there's no agility equipment. So if you look at that side of that facility, which is great, it's great that the town has it, it still cost them over $50,000 to construct. So we're going to be looking very easily at $100,000 to $150,000 to construct an adequate facility. Finally, we'll need to look at how the park will be operated and maintained. I've seen it done in 3 ways. Either you have a volunteer group that's responsible for all maintenance and operations activities. You have county staff responsible for all the activities, so it would be taken into our parks and recreation system. Or it's a combination of the two where you determine what activities each group is going to be responsible for. It'll be a county facility, but perhaps you have your volunteers helping you with the daily emptying of the pet waste stations or some general landscaping and stuff. And last question would be how the park rules are going to be enforced. Previously, we had about 18 rules that we were looking at. I took those to Andy Pendleton as he oversees the animal control, and he said out of those 18 rules, there's really only 2 they can enforce. They can enforce whether or not your dog has the proper rabies vaccination, and they can enforce that you could not have a dog that is in heat in the park with other dogs. The other 16 rules would be the responsibility of whoever is operating the park to enforce. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys may have. I'm going to back it up to the slide that had the questions on there so we can kind of run through those. The motion you have in front of you right now is to authorize staff to proceed with additional planning for a dog park with one of the 3 sites that are mentioned. With that, we'd bring back a more concrete budget and identify possible funding sources at next month's meeting. But if we find that those 3 sites are not what we want to go forward with, we can change that motion to allow staff to identify other potential sites. And that's all I got for you.
Anyone have any questions for Brandon? Go ahead, Mr. Quinn.
So, you guys have done a great job of putting together various alternatives and identifying the pros and cons. So my question really to Chris and Steve and Brandy, if you were the CEO of the county and you were making this decision, what would you do? Ahead of any input from us, what would your decision be? What's your recommendation?
That's a. I was going to say, is that a It's a good question, Mr. Quinn, Supervisor Quinn. It's going to take me a minute to answer that, but I would say, first and foremost, at CEO is really about the dollars budgeted for Parks and Recreation and the master plan of Parks and Recreation and how our parks fit into the overall strategic vision and strategic planning for the county. And I will say that I think our citizens have demonstrated, at least in that area, with the working of Ms. Dillon, a very concerted effort to say, yes, we would like to see a dog park, in the community. Now, that said, the moving into the building of a dog park really is, it is about the numbers, it is about the cost, it is about the dollars. I think the timing of this initiative is really, really good. And the fact that we're going into our CIP discussion, but we also have a group that's raised significant dollars. The other thing I would say is these are just 3 possible sites in what I would say the Westlake area and so forth. There's not to say that there may be other sites available that we could look at specifically. I would also say the fact that the community has demonstrated the want and the desire for a dog park and a dog amenity in that area, that in terms of, and I think Brandy mentioned it in one of her bullet points earlier, the opportunity for public-private partnerships beyond just, the county and so forth, i.e. a developer, whatever it may be. But I don't know, Mr. Quinn, I'll pause there for your question. I hope I've answered your question. The need has been demonstrated. The dollars are being raised. We're at a point where we have property that would accommodate the dog park and the location. And as in a matter of policy, we've said with our strategic vision, amenities and so forth to attract visitors and residents to Franklin County, and I think Ms. Rosser outlined those. So I think all of that has been demonstrated. Funds are there. We do have dollars, whether they're not necessarily budgeted specifically in the county CIP, in the county budget. We do have dollars for capital. There's a capital investment account that you all saw earlier that Mr. Carter put forth to you. So, the recommendation, it's a board decision, Mr. Quinn, really as a matter of board policy and so forth. The very nature of, my position is to make sure that you all have enough information to make that informed decision, and I hope we're providing that for you all.
No, that was good. I think you're generally supportive of bringing that to the county. What if we took it one step further? Of the various sites, which one would you recommend if you were making the decision on your own?
I can jump in and help out if you want, just since I've done so much research on these sites. 100% supportive of a dog park. I think our community would love it. Looking at it from a neutral point of view, where I'm really just looking at the details of the properties, I think the site next to the collection site is prime for commercial development. It has your water, it has your electricity. I can see companies moving in there and it becoming a tax generator. Looking at Smith Farm, you wouldn't have water at the facility. But it's one of our focuses for Parks and Recreation is develop that park. So it won't be out there like in the middle of nowhere for long. We're going to develop this park, and a dog park could be a wonderful part of that. The property that's behind Lake Watch Plantation Shopping Center, I know there's been some conversation about a potential residential development there that would add a great walkability between a residential development and this park. And the area has already been designated as a recreational area. So I believe in the justification behind the master plan that really identified the commercial area or the office park technology area. The utilities are there. But we could still have a dog park there and be completely successful.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Ms. Dillon and this nonprofit she's put together. They've done an extraordinary amount of work on this project, and since this has been in the press and the fundraiser done, there's been a lot of momentum in my district for this project, without question. I think it will be an amenity that is well deserved to my constituents, and I would like to see this primarily beside the landfill site. I don't know what a dumpster site.
Green box collection
Green
site.
box
Yeah.
collection site. I would like to see it there. Secondarily, I would go for the other property there at Lake Watch. However, one thing that, and I've been over there to the Frisbee golf part, and I can't claim to understand the interconnectivity between this proposed swath of land as option B to the Frisbee golf. And if there is a connection, but the entrance into that Frisbee golf project begs the question. That is a terrible, terrible entrance into there. It's got to be paved. It's got to be cleared. It's an embarrassment, and we've got to do better. So if the dog park is going to have to be under the scrutiny of that entrance, then I would say no.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the nonprofit group has worked largely and in part with the property there at the Green Box site, and we haven't had any activity on that site that I know of to date. I would have to look to Danny about that, and it would still leave a balance of property there on that, depending upon the size of the dog park. So I would like to see us make this investment on behalf of our citizens. You gentlemen must understand that the constituents in my district, they need amenities. They want amenities. It's an attraction for tourism. It's an attraction for residency. And we've got a lot going on in this district as it relates to supporting the county. And anything that we can invest in and provide in this district will pay dividends to the entire county, all of our districts. And so we need to be better and do better, and we need to provide services. And I think that this is an amenity I think that will be extremely popular, and it will be well utilized.
As usual, I saved my comments to last. I've been down there and looked at these locations, and I agree with Supervisor Smith. I think I support putting the dog park there next to the dumpster site. And my reasoning, I know that's a valuable piece of property for commercial uses, but it's been a valuable piece of property for several years, and we haven't had any activity down there. Maybe by the off chance that if people see something going on, whether it's building or whether it's somebody down there walking their dog, maybe it'll generate some interest that is not currently down there, and put us in a step in the right direction. If it does, I think it may make Danny's job a little easier on recruiting someone to come down there and look at it. And that's kind of my thought. It is a valuable piece of property, but it's just sitting there right now, not doing anybody any good. And so that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Go ahead, Nick.
I rode through there myself and took a look. I've tried to do a better job since I've been here on being more open-minded as to what other people want. A dog park means nothing to me, but I do understand that down there's a need for it. And I'm fine with it. But I will say that I'll have to agree with you, Brandy, on Site B. I think Site A is, like Tim said, it is a valuable piece of property, and I think it could come to fruition. And this doesn't have to be a instant fix. Maybe Site B needs some development anyway. Maybe this is a good reason to start working on it. Mm-hmm. But I do see the need for it, and I would support it, but I would be more in support of Site B because, as you said, the dog waste you're going to wind up with a lot of it thrown in that dumpster regardless if it's sitting there, and it's not supposed to be. But and I liked your presentation.
Thank you.
Because I don't believe this needs to be something that's just thrown up. If we're going to do it, I'd like to see all the cool bells and whistles in it. I don't think it should just be something that's there. So that's just my 2 cents.
All right. Did that generate any questions or comments from anyone else? Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
And I don't know, I think staff's gonna have to really come to a good decision on this, but listening to all this, and nobody said anything about Site C, which was Lovely Valley, but I look at that long-term as a park that's gonna be developed, and there will be more stuff there. Parks and Rec will already be in place there, so there would be maintenance staff probably available there. I'm just throwing that out there. If you all think Site A is the best, but I think I agree with what Nick said. I'm a little bit concerned now. I haven't heard the potential for other development on that piece of property. But I'm not opposed to the dog park. The only other thing I'll say is I know they've raised money and that's great, but I think about Callaway or Snow Creek, we're going to plunk $150,000 or whatever into this in that part of the county. So what are we doing for Tim's end of the county or Nick's or whatever?
Mr. Carter.
Thank you. Thank you, Brandy. All right, board, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to offer a motion, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
right ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Supervisors authorize staff to proceed with an additional planning for dog park facility at Site A and to develop a project budget to be presented and approved at the board's September 17th meeting. I further move that the staff identify possible funding sources for the construction and maintenance of the facility.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a final vote?
Laura, your motion was for Site A.
Yes, sir.
All right, is there any other discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison,
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum,
Yes.
and Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Thank you, Board. Thank you very much.
All right. County Administrator,
I think I can do.
you want to do the legislative?
I think maybe in time with the 6 o'clock hearing, maybe we go to closed session. We do ours after. Does
Okay.
that work for
You want to make the motion?
for legislative agenda?
I will,
Closed
Mr.
session.
Chairman. At this time, I would offer that the Board of Supervisors enter into a closed meeting in accordance with Section 2.2-3711A1, personnel discussion of appointments to county boards, commissions, etc. A3, discussion of the acquisition of real property or the disposition of real property, and A5, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry. A7, consultation with legal counsel on briefings by staff about litigation or other specific matters requiring legal advice. A29, discussion of the terms of a public contract of the Code of Virginia as amended.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Norman saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll go in the back.
B75?
B75, read the motion, please.
Yes, sir. I certify that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session to which the certification applies, and only such business matters as were identified in the motion by which this closed session was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which this certification applies.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk, you want to take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Mitchell,
Yes.
Supervisor Carter,
Yes.
Supervisor Smith,
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn,
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum,
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
All right. Let's take care of these committee appointments while they're fresh on our mind. Ms. Smith, do you have some you want to make?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you. I have two appointments to put before the board. The first one would be to appoint Lieutenant Sean Richardson to the CPMT team, and he is taking, why am I going to lose my track of thinking,
Taking Philip Young.
Philip Young, thank you, taking his place. So I would make a motion that the board appoint Lieutenant Sean Richardson to CPMT.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Madam Clerk, can we do a voice vote on that? Okay, all in favor of Lieutenant Richardson being on CPMT, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
And the second one, Mr. Vice Chair, is that I would move to appoint Jessica Davis to the CPMT.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion before we take a vote? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, other committees. I want to appoint B.W. Wright to the Piedmont Community Services Board. He's currently on the board and his term's getting ready to expire, and I'd like to reappoint him.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a final vote on Mr. Wright? All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, I would also make a motion that we reappoint Rainey Woods to the Piedmont Community Services Board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, we have any more?
There's an application for STEP, but I don't know if it's.
Okay, I don't know her. Run that
get
one by
more
Mr.
information.
Carter, see if he knows her. You don't know her? Okay, let's see if we can do some more and find out, yeah. All right, was that all of them? Okay. All right, moving right along. Ms. Cooper. Good to see you.
It's nice to see you all this evening. And I have a different type of public hearing. It's not a short-term rental.
Oh,
Thank you so much for that.
But anyway, good evening. We are here to talk about a rezone. So the rezone is for a piece of property that is in the Gills Creek area. It's 0.441 acres. Part of the property is Zone B1 Business District Limited, and we want to rezone it to A1 Agricultural for the purpose of constructing a single-family dwelling. In 2002, the property, approximately 1.5 acres, was rezoned from R1 Residential Suburban District to B1 Business District Limited for the purpose of constructing a real estate office. At that time, it was 2 lots. It was not 4. The building was never constructed, so the real estate office was never on that property. So in 2005, the properties were subdivided in what's called Haskell Hollow Cove. It's on Plat Book 875 and Book 2282. But unfortunately, the rezoning stayed there, the B1. According to the Commissioner of Revenue, this property is taxed as single-family suburban. The survey provided by the applicant shows a cemetery located in the northern corner of the property, and we'll see that here in a few minutes. The proposed drain field for the single-family dwelling is going to be on the southern side of the property, close to the rear of the property, and then your water source will be a well. The property is located on Morewood Road, which is Route 616. It is a state-maintained road and consists mostly of single-family residents. Staff did receive 5 calls about the application and the public hearing. Most of them were general, wanting to know what it was about. One person was concerned about short-term rentals. I think there's a couple of short-term rentals on Morewood. As far as we know, and the applicant, I think Mr. Heckman might be talking for the property owners, I don't think their intent is to use it for short-term rental. I think they are planning to live there. We like to give you a vicinity map. You also are familiar with this area. It is also in the Westlake Hales Ford designated growth area. We like to give you an aerial view. It's in the blue. And I think another map shows it better, but this is the little cemetery that I was talking about. We like to give you a future land use map. It's suburban residential, 2 units per acre. So that is similar to your low density residential. We like to give you a zoning map. So at one point in time in 2002, all this was rezoned B2. It was 2 lots. Then it was subdivided into it's about 5 lots. This is the property that we're talking about. This is the little cemetery. And the drain field is going somewhere around in here. And so since B1 does not allow single-family dwellings, that's one of the reasons why we're requesting the rezone. And then this whole parcel will be A1 if the Board of Supervisors passes. This is a conceptual plan. You can see where this is the outline of where the B1 is. So this is the property that we're talking about. So again, here's the cemetery, and this is a better description of where the drain field will go. This is just some pictures in case you didn't make it out to the site so that you can see, as it's a little construction entrance there showing you the property. And this is another view and another one looking at Morewood. The proposed rezone is consistent with the purpose and intent of the A1 agricultural district in respect to residential development. Most of the surrounding area is either vacant or developed with single-family or 2-family dwellings. The comprehensive plan and the Westlake Hales Ford plan describes that this area is best suited for residential development. Predominantly, you would see that it's single-family or 2-family dwellings. The comp plan and the Westlake Overlay District talks about the future land use designation. As I said before, suburban residential, 2 units per acre. Both plans would support the rezoning. Rezoning the property completely to A1 rather than the partial is more consistent with the nearby development and generally most adjacent zonings. The applicant has not submitted any proffers with this rezone application. Given the purpose and the intent of the rezone, the Planning Commission did support, find that it supported the comprehensive and area plans, and the rezone should be approved because it would be in harmony with the existing character and use of the growth area. So to let you know, the Planning Commission did hold their public hearing last month. They did request for it to be rezoned from B1 to A1 agricultural with no proffers. It was a 7-0 vote. I would be glad to answer any questions about the property, and the owners and the applicant are here for you to ask questions of also.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Cooper?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Vice Chair. Hi, Lisa.
Yes, hello.
Just a question. I'm projecting out. Knowing that we're doing a zoning rewrite, would you just generally anticipate that the residential portion of the A1 zoning code is going to deal with residential as an exclusion in A1?
Deal with residential as an exclusion in the A1 district?
Yeah.
If we have more than one A1 district, I would say so, but without that, I don't know that you would want to exclude all single families out of your agricultural district.
Okay. That
I think that's something, if that is important to you, I think that's something that staff and you as a board need to discuss. But as a planner, I'm not sure I would exclude it out of all of the A1 districts.
Sure. I understand that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Anyone else? All right, thank you. Does the property owner want to speak? If you will, state your name and address for the record, please.
Dave Heckman, Straight Edge Builders. Thank you for considering this rezoning. The customers that I have bought the property, bought a home for me, and then we went for the zoning permit so we could keep moving, and that's when it was brought to our attention at that point that it was zoned in two different areas. And the other properties around that have that same zoning in the front of the property, it doesn't affect them because their houses are way down at the lake. This property is cut right in half by the two zonings. That's why we have come and asked for the rezoning so they can build their house. And it will not be any short-term rentals. It is for them to live in full-time.
All right.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the floor for public comment in regard to this rezone request. Madam Clerk, do we have
I
anyone?
have no speakers on this issue.
Okay, is there anyone here in the gallery tonight that would like to speak in regard to this rezone request? Seeing none, I will close the floor to public comment. Board, what's your pleasure?
If there are no comments, Mr. Vice Chair, I will offer a motion when you're ready.
I think we're ready.
Okay. I would find that the rezoning will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent properties, that the character of the surrounding area will not be changed thereby, and that such rezoning will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the county code, comprehensive plan, and with the public health, safety, and general welfare to the community. Therefore, I move to recommend approval of the applicant's request to rezone approximately 0.441 acres from B1 Business District Limited to A1 Agricultural District with no proffers.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a final vote? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
All right. Moving right along. Okay, we've reached the time set aside in our meeting for public comment. Public comment gives citizens an opportunity to address the board in person or in writing on matters appropriate to the responsibilities of the board. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes for their comments. Speakers must direct all comments to the board as a whole and not to individual board members or employees of the board or county. Personal attacks and insulting, profane, or vulgar language will not be tolerated. Likewise, commentary on issues that are not within the purview of the board and that are not a function of local government and over which we have no control are not acceptable. Public comment is not a question and answer session, and board members will not answer questions during public comment. If a speaker violates these rules, the chair may rule the speaker out of order, and upon a second violation, have the speaker removed from the podium. Madam Clerk, call for a speaker, please.
Rhonda Reaganhard?
If you will, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Rhonda Reaganhart,
Pull that mic down. There you go.
2056 Fairfield Road, Henry, Virginia.
Okay.
I'm here tonight to talk about a little bit about the shelter and animal control. I would like to start off by saying thank you for the state-of-the-art shelter that y'all saw through and have gave our county. And thank you for increasing our staffing for that wonderful shelter. We do appreciate that. I'm not here to ask for money. What I'm here to ask for is clarity and a little bit of oversight. I was actually hired as the animal shelter manager, and I turned it down. So during the interview process, I was stressed by Andy Pendleton about that he wanted to have the animal shelter staff take over on Sundays away from the animal control officers and remove animal control officers from the animal shelter because of the drama that it was creating between the two departments. I thought it was a great idea. I ended up not taking the job. The new manager agreed that it was a great idea, and y'all approved more hours for the shelter, which then allowed the shelter employees to take over that and remove the ACO. That's good stuff. But now, the contradictions. When I was hired, I was told the managers must work weekends because it's needed at the shelter. Andy gave a position to Officer Angle that I'm not quite sure y'all know. He is now the supervisor of animal control. I don't know that y'all approved that. But only works Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. And that's all he works. He works no holidays and no weekends. While your animal shelter manager has to work the weekends, has to work holidays. It doesn't seem fair. ACO Angle has one of the worst attitudes of walking around the shelter. And just his favorite saying is, that dog has been here too long, he needs the needle, which means euthanasia. He says this in front of volunteers, employees of the shelter. You can ask any employee or many volunteers who is saying, give the needle to the animal, and they'll tell you it's Officer Angle. To me, that's not the right attitude to have for an officer that deals with the public. It's a little bit of hypocrisy. He also has now decided that the animal shelter manager is going to be an animal control officer. So instead of coming to the Board of Supervisors and asking for another animal control officer, he's going around it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Dawn Whalen.
She decided she didn't want to speak? Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else?
I have no other speakers.
Okay. Is there anyone here? I don't think so. That wants to speak? Captain Mullen, you want to speak?
Captain Mullen, don't you want to say something?
Come on now.
All right. If that's the case, we will close the public comments. And before we go to other matters by supervisors, I want Mr. Whitlow, if you will, I think
Yes.
you and Ms. Smith and Mr. Quinn would share with us about the legislative agenda updates.
Want me to go?
I think so. Mr. Tatum, Ms. Smith, I know members of the board, as you all know, Supervisor Smith has spent a lot of time, a great deal of time on the legislative agenda, and of course a lot of good board discussion this month. I think that is all in your packet, and so there's no one probably better to speak to that than Supervisor Smith. So Supervisor Smith.
Take it away.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to assist the board. So in the interest of time, the takeaway for this evening is I would be looking for an approval of the legislative agenda. What you have in your notebook is what will be our rack card, if you will, that are the two slides that look like this. And under your direction, we decided unanimously that we would highlight up to 3, 4, 5 priorities of the issues that are listed then on the narrative form behind that, so that we can laser focus ourselves in with our legislators on specific issues and look to be gaining some ground. When we drill down, we've been encouraged to do this. I'm working at VACO as well on legislative agenda and at the Roanoke-Allegheny Regional Commission. And so there's some rules of thumb, if you will, for this year. Get in early with your legislators. I'm talking September at the latest. And the legislators really are encouraging the localities to drill down on, they're saying 3 issues. Do your homework on these 3 issues. And then let's see if we can move the needle. without getting the 20-some, issues that we have on our main narrative agenda. So under your guidance and the feedback that I'm very grateful for, we have listed affordable and workforce housing, which basically just gets to asking the state to promote the incentives and programs for affordable and workforce housing, which supports our economic development strategic plan as well. The second is utility solar farms. This is an issue that we are going to have to watch very closely. I've listed two bills, one's a Senate bill and one's a House bill, on this flyer because they were referred from this past session to this coming session in 2025. There is a lot of movement in Richmond as to local control being taken away from Virginia localities for the purposes of us being able to approve or disapprove utility solar farms. The data centers in Northern Virginia are oversubscribed, and they do not have the power they need to run. And so there's a lot of pressure coming from the lobbies and so forth, and business owners in Northern Virginia. They've got to find the power. And so we stand a fairly good chance of losing some local control if we don't drive this home. And I know with our neighboring localities and folks that are in our district, they are carrying the same message. And we need to understate it because, if we lose this battle, then we're just going to be open to the State Corporation Commission telling us where a utility solar farm is going to be located in our county. And I think that's detrimental to us. The next item is transportation. As you all know, we have been very adamant and vocal about our rural, secondary, and unpaved roads. We are asking here that we get a dedicated funding stream through VDOT specifically for this purpose, and a line of funding that does not compete with another transportation line item. The state this year's running approximately another $2 billion surplus, so there's money still coming in. The other thing we would ask for, if we can pull one of these off, it would be great. The other thing is that in the Virginia Code that's listed here, there is a capped amount of $25 million that is allowed up to for disbursement to the VDOT offices throughout the Commonwealth for secondary and unpaved roads. And so I'm trying to get at the money. I think one of the things we should be asking for is a budget amendment versus, in addition, or if we can pull one of these off, but a budget amendment that would move that cap of $25 million. I'm putting a $50 million suggestion on it so that we can increase that funding. Therefore, the allocations to the rural counties and the Commonwealth would have available more money for secondary and unpaved roads. The next thing you all were very insistent about, and appropriately so, was CSA. You saw some of these numbers from Brian earlier this evening. We are adamantly talking about equitable cost sharing between the state and the localities, and that we have an ability to negotiate with private providers, that the state will help us in promoting that as a requirement. And you can see there, you all had asked me to put in the numbers basically of what we're dealing with, and I'm hoping that this meets your requirement that was given to me, and we have stated that these are unsustainable increases for any locality, much less ours. Second thing on this page is school resource officers. We are asking that the state fully fund the school resource officer allocations when the grants run out, because it will be 100% borne expenditure on the localities at that point. And we're looking at that to take place by 2028, 2027-28, I should say, where we're going to be looking at a couple $1 million of new money that we've got to identify to continue the program. I feel like this board has told me that the state has a role in helping the localities fund SROs in the localities. The last thing on here was the local sales tax option of imposing an additional 1% sales tax only by referendum that would be performed, and such revenue from the 1% would be restricted to school capital projects and renovation. As you all know, there's probably 6 or 7 localities in the Commonwealth that currently have this ability, and they were just done individually over time. This came up in this past session, and it was passed by the House and the Senate, and Governor Youngkin vetoed it. So what we need to go after at this point is emphasizing to the General Assembly again and to Governor Youngkin's office that this is needed and that it really puts this decision back in the hands of the people, because it would be via referendum with the underlying rationale that localities are going to we're going to be faced with school repairs of very aged buildings and capital improvements in our schools. And that's going to have to be, the general fund is going to be hit for that. We're going to have debt service with these associated things that are going to be required. And so if we were to be able to get this 1% allocation, we could literally take care of a prioritized list, checking the boxes to take care of our needed renovations and capital projects within the schools. So it's going to take pressure off of our general fund, which I think is a significant rationale to continue to support this. So I would open up the floor at this point, Mr. Vice Chair, for any comments, requests for changes, additions, or deletions to this. I'm happy to make. It would be desirable to, if you have changes, I will make them immediately, and maybe you could approve this tonight with understanding those corrections would be made. And we'll be scheduling a time with our legislators independent of the luncheon in September, so that we can really drill down on data and what we need to kind of beef and support and bolster these issues with them individually as we give them, you know, our marching orders at our legislative luncheon.
All right. Anyone have any questions or comments for Ms. Smith?
Laurie, are these listed as in priority order?
No, sir.
What you got? Okay.
No, sir. And, you know, again, this document that's behind those 2 rack card, this is our entire legislative agenda. And there's a lot here, but there's a lot of good substance in this document. So this will go to them as well. The chances of this being read is not good, really. And, you know, if we look at reality and their time to deal with each localities.
And the 2-page with the bold print, that's going to be printed on a card.
It'll be a
right?
back and front card.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll get those done, and each supervisor will make sure you have some in your possession. And when we go to Richmond, especially in 2025, they'll go with us. But this is going to be something that we will be utilizing on a frequent basis between now and session. Do you all have any requests for changes, additions, or any different layout, perhaps?
I've got none, Laura. I think what you guys are fine with me.
Okay.
Okay, I'm moving around. Seeing thumbs up. Okay, Dan.
I have a couple of comments. So
Sure.
The first, last year, it felt like we took a similar approach when we sat down with Bill Stanley, and I wasn't part of the board at that time. But the good news was he was very honest. But the bad news was he said he's not going to be able to do anything on these issues. And to the best of my knowledge, nothing came out of our request. And so it leaves me wondering, is this the same approach, or is there something we could do with our approach to increase our odds of winning something, right? Rather than, if you keep doing the same thing, you'll keep getting the same result. And so I don't have enough experience to want to even suggest a different approach, but I feel like, okay, this is similar to what we did last year and we got nothing. What could we do different where we might get something? So
That's a great question, Mr. Quinn, and we are doing some things different. I'm on the list to get a meeting with Terry Austin and he is the delegate that chairs transportation in the General Assembly. And we also have a lead into the Appropriations Committee. And those things are going to help if we get the attention, and I've already talked to Terry Austin offline, but if we get, his attention and support, Senator Stanley may not feel he can accomplish this. That's fine, and we respect that. But we have good traction on these issues. I can tell you, localities don't approach their legislative agenda knowing they're going to get anything done. It's going to come in numbers. And as an example, we've got about 11 other localities that agreed to work with us on this these transportation issues last year. And I want to reconvene those. There's strength in numbers. So the measuring stick for me is not going to be that we didn't get it last year. It is coalescing around how can we do different and be different. This earlier approach that we're taking is going to be most helpful. The approach where we're going to actually sit down with Will and Bill and really talk about these things with some data versus just giving them, the overview at the legislative luncheon is quite different. And we're going to be looking, and I think my approach is very different. I've been afforded the ability to work from several different platforms, and I'm learning a lot. Quite candidly, I'm learning a whole lot about how to work the agendas at the General Assembly level, and how to get things heard, how to get it into committee. And I'm hoping that I can be a benefit to the board as we begin this work. I hope that's answering your question, Mr. Quinn.
So, and one other comment on the local sales tax option. So I would leave it in as written, but I kind of pulling this apart into two separate things. One is wanting to give us the chance to have a referendum on this, and I'm very supportive of that. And if for no other reason other counties can do it, why shouldn't we be able to have a referendum, right? And I'm also very supportive of trying to get more money for the schools. In fact, for the new CTE. But I would, again, just remind everybody that a sales tax is highly regressive. It's it's just common economic knowledge. It's regressive. It hits harder on the poor and the middle class. And so, whereas a property tax is hitting harder on the wealthier. And so, we would, as we go forward and we're advising our constituents, I think each of us would need to think about what our position is about having a tax that's highly regressive on the poor and the middle class versus on the wealthier part of our population. Okay. So, but having said all that, I would still leave this in because I believe we should have a chance to have a referendum just like the other counties.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you, Lori, for your hard work on this, and I looked it over and I wouldn't change a thing. Just keep putting the pedal to the metal and keep pushing. And I will have to say that I disagree with Mr. Quinn on his interpretation of the sales tax. I think that it is probably the fairest tax that we could utilize. Also, people that don't live in Franklin County but come here to vacation and they tax our resources. They have accidents and they call for squads, they call for police, they call for fire, and they utilize our resources. They're not paying any taxes here in the county, but by increasing the sales tax, it gives them an opportunity to help us fund our school needs. And we do have a very aging school division. The buildings, the newest school in the county is Windy Gap, and Windy Gap was built in what, 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. So it's 20 years old now. Henry School, that was just closed, was the next newest elementary school, and it was 50 years old. Wow. So we, 7 different localities were given the opportunity to let their citizens decide, and that's all we're asking for. is give us the opportunity to let our citizens decide. And so I appreciate you putting that in there. I think that we'll keep it moving in the right direction, and we put the ball in their court and see what they do.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right.
May I ask for
Sure.
action on that, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
you sure can.
If it's to the board's pleasure, I would make a motion that the board pass the 24-25 legislative agenda items as submitted.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a vote? Madam Clerk, would you take a roll call, please?
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Whitlow, anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a few other matters, and as a follow-up to the legislative agenda, Supervisor Smith, myself, Mr. Sandy, Mr. Carter were in Richmond last Thursday attending the VACO Summit, and a lot of good insight. Mr. Quinn, you would ask, what further maybe, some things could be done. I think Supervisor Smith noted some of those. One of the things that we learned there was to communicate more with the legislators earlier and often. I think that is a little bit different this year. We have done that. Secondly, they also suggested if there are some things out of that RAC card, 2 or 3 things, whether it's SROs, the sales tax option, transportation, if you will, to also send the governor a letter. Under the signature from the board, here's our legislative platform. Here are the highlights of these things. And so, as staff, we're drafting a letter currently to the governor's office, because the governor's office currently, his staff and the finance staff is putting together some things. So at least they're aware of some of those things. So, a couple of other items this afternoon. I mentioned earlier, or this evening rather, I mentioned when Ferrum College was here. Announcing the Ferrum Flood Mitigation Project. That is a FEMA grant that we were notified today that we had applied for with the Water Authority, Ferrum College, and West Piedmont. And again, as I noted earlier, that's in the amount of about $199,000. There is a small local match for that's required. It's around $9,000, $10,000. Those funds are budgeted in our capital budget under our village improvements. And so I do have, we will need to accept the grant funds within a certain time period. So we would like to go ahead and do that to get that going. And I'll pass along possible motions for the board consideration this evening to go ahead and accept the award and give us permission to sign the appropriate documents.
Okay, board, what's your pleasure?
I'll offer a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the Ferrum Flood Mitigation Hazard Mitigation Grant in the amount of $199,000, utilizing $9,950 of existing village improvement capital funding to satisfy the required local match, and further authorize the county administrator or designee and county attorney to review, sign, and execute the necessary documents for the grant award.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a final vote? Okay, Madam Clerk, you want to do a roll call?
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
And Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Okay, have another one that came in. It's been a busy week with grants. This one is the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. This is something that we try to apply for each year to really help supplement our capital budget for things like radio equipment, turnout gear, things of that nature. And so we applied for the actual total we request is around $640,000. We have not been awarded the $640,000. But they did approve, and this is another FEMA grant, assistance to firefighters. They did approve $218,000. That's for 50 sets of turnout gear replacements. We've been trying to budget that within our capital budget each year, and that will certainly go towards that. And the local match on that is $21,000, and that is already budgeted in our capital improvement plan for fire EMS equipment to cover that local match. So again, leveraging our dollars with these grants has been very, we've been very successful with that, and we're able to leverage those dollars and extend the dollar, if you will, by receiving those federal funds. And we would need to, like the other, to accept this grant and authorize staff to sign and execute the necessary documents.
Mr. Whitlow, I would like to say, just in way of a comment, when I got into firefighting back in the late 90s, a set of turnout gear for a firefighter, that $21,000 that we're putting up for our local match would buy about 21 sets. Now it'll buy 7. It's crazy. It's crazy what the cost, and they have a life. I mean, each set of turnout gear has a life on it, and we have to keep up with that, because if we have a firefighter that gets out here and gets hurt, and someone looks at his turnout gear, and if it's out of date, we have a problem. So I think this is a good opportunity to keep something that we have started in replacing the turnout gear to make sure our firefighters have the best equipment that low bid can buy. But I know they appreciate it, and Board, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to accept the FY 2023 FEMA assistance to firefighter grant in the amount of $218,181.81, utilizing $21,818.19 of existing capital fire EMS funding to satisfy the required local match, and authorize the county administrator or designee and the county attorney to review, sign, and execute the necessary documents for the grant award.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call?
Supervisor Smith?
Yes.
Supervisor Quinn?
Yes.
Supervisor Carter?
Yes.
Supervisor Jamison?
Yes.
Supervisor Mitchell?
Yes.
Vice Chair Tatum?
Yes.
Chairman Thompson is absent for the vote.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I thank you for your patience with that. Those were time sensitive. We needed to get them accepted and so forth. But the good news is they came in. They just didn't come in previous in time for the agendas last week. So we're thankful and blessed that we've received those grants. In addition, there's some other things I'd like to share with the board, some upcoming events and so forth, just some reminders really quickly. This one really is Chestnut Hill Road. I believe this is in Mr. Mitchell's district. It's a bridge over the Pig River. This is just more of an informational item. They are going to replace that bridge, VDOT, over the next year. They're going to go to advertisement in December. We have reached out to the school system, public safety, sheriff's office. There will be some detours beginning next June, so it's more of an awareness. They do need a concurrence letter from my office. It's one of these things where it's really, we don't really have a choice. It's a VDOT bridge. They're going to replace it, but I'm just making the board aware of it. So if there's no objections, we'll send our letter of concurrence. So I don't see any there. All right. Next, Virginia's Blue Ridge will be undertaking their destination leadership strategic plan, and this is a new update to VBR's plan. The previous strategic plan that was initiated and launched about between 5 and 7 years ago really focused on Virginia's Blue Ridge, and if you all recall, our mountain bike destination, the East Coast capital for mountain biking and so forth. And a lot of things came from that. Trails 2024, Team 2024, which a couple of Olympians just won the gold medal with Team 2024. It trained right here in the Roanoke region. Some other things that benefited Franklin County from that, if you all recall, was last year's USA Cycling amateur races here in Franklin County. The national mountain bike races will be brought to the region next year. It won't necessarily be in Franklin County, but we will have opportunity for future national races with things like USA Cycling. I say all that to say a lot of that strategic work that was done with VBR 5 to 7 years ago, they're now looking to update that for the next 5 years or so. So they've reached out to our office, and I really appreciate this about VBR. They want board member input, not just staff input, not just vendor input and so forth. They really want the elected input. So our office will reach back out to you all. As you all know, with board meeting requirements, we can only do 2 at a time. I think they have heard back from Supervisor Smith. There's time frames. This is Wednesday, September the 18th. And they have a time at 8 o'clock in the morning, 2:30 in the afternoon, and then 4 o'clock. And so my office will be reaching back to you all this week. I'll have Lori reach back out to you. If you can, great. If you can't, we certainly understand. They understand. It's one day that the consultant will be in Roanoke. The meetings there at the VBR office in Roanoke, they'll take good care of us. But any input from board members is certainly welcome, and we'll get that back out to you. Speaking of VBR, they were going to hold their annual meeting on October the 10th. This just came in. They're going to hold that at the Salem Civic Center and then celebrate the new Warrior Sports Complex. They try to have the locations rotated around the region and so forth, and we're going to wait our turn, and hopefully next year when VBR works with Kevin Tosh on our Bass Pro Championship and so forth, I think it's a great opportunity to get VBR to do something here in Franklin County on a future annual meeting. We'll get that information out to y'all. Another annual meeting, the Farm Bureau, and we'll get this out to you. You may have it in front of you. If not, we'll put it in the Friday packet again, Monday, September the 16th. It's the annual meeting. And this one here, another one that is important. And I would say, and Mr. Quinn, I think we've now come back to you on this one 2 or 3 times about maybe what more we can do from the legislative agenda standpoint. The Roanoke Regional Chamber of Commerce holds their annual, they call it the Politickin' and Pig Pickin'. Good barbecue. It's going to be at the Virginia Museum of Transportation on October 3rd. And so they have invited both our federal legislators, our national legislators, our state legislators, including Delegate Davis, Senator Stanley, and the Franklin County Board of Supervisors. And so we will also reach out to you all. If there's any board member that would like to attend, we'll get you registered. It is an opportunity to meet with the elected leadership at the national and state level, but then also the business leadership, some of the heavy hitters in the Roanoke region. So we'll get this information out to you all just to make sure that Franklin County is represented, and maybe we'll get our opportunity to talk about transportation and our other needs at that meeting. Other matters upcoming, a couple of things, and I mentioned this last month, maybe the last couple of months, and I think we need to go ahead and solidify a specific date. The VACO, Virginia Association of Counties annual meeting is November 10th through the 12th. And of course, as I had mentioned before, previously, many localities, and not that we have to follow the other localities, but some localities, i.e. Roanoke County, typically doubles up their November and December board meeting because of the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. Roanoke County chooses to do one super meeting in November as an example. Not necessarily saying or suggesting that, but our Board of Supervisors regularly scheduled meeting is the third Tuesday on November the 19th. Certainly we could double up and try to do a lot of our agenda work there, and also either that week for that work session, that's the week prior to Thanksgiving, or advance our December meeting as opposed to right before Christmas rather than the third week of December, the second week of December, or either the first week of December. So looking at December 3rd, which is a Tuesday, 5th is a Thursday, December 10th, or December 12th. Don't necessarily know if we need the board to make that decision today. I will shoot these dates back out to you all, but maybe if we could have some consensus by Thursday when we have the work session, what may work best for the board, if the board still would like to do that.
Could you send those dates to us, Chris?
I will.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Chris, when you talked about doubling up, were you talking about combining the Tuesday and Thursday meeting into one, or the November and December meeting into one?
Roanoke County combines their December and November meeting into one. For us, we have worked having that Tuesday, Thursday work session, and that may be something we could consider in December if the agendas are lighter, where maybe we have a November 19th board meeting, if you will, and then maybe a December 3rd, 5th, 10th, 12th. I'll get these dates out to you. And then finally, speaking of dates and work sessions, of course, we have a board work session retreat scheduled planned for Wednesday, September the 4th, beginning at 4. And of course, the consensus of the board last month was that we hold that between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. here at the County Government Center in B75, and not necessarily have that facilitated, but maybe staff work to facilitate that. Of course, staff is open to whatever the pleasure of the board may be. I know there's been, there may be in terms of the participation of the board. As we all know, our chairman is currently not with us due to some health concerns and issues. And so I do not look for Chairman Thompson to be with us on the September 4th. So it's certainly the pleasure of the board and what the board may want to do. I think our thought as staff was to really go back to our strategic plan work that we did a couple of years ago, review that with the board and our new board members, realizing our new board members really didn't have that opportunity to gather input and so forth. Review that plan, review those priorities as we're going into the budget session, the capital improvement session, as we're getting ready to kick off the budget season. See maybe what has been done, what has been accomplished, see maybe what hasn't been done, see what may be missing. Is there a need for a new strategic plan or a revision to the existing strategic plan? But this would be more of a one-day review, if you will, and then also spend some time back with Danny on the economic development strategic plan. We were going to bring that back. So within those 4 or 5 hours, we were going to build an outline to really do a lot of review, what has been done, what hasn't been done, what are we missing, maybe some things as we go into the budget season, how we can better plan for that in a one-day session, or a half-day session, I should say. We can still do that. Again, we may not have Mr. Thompson with us at that particular session. And then, of course, staff is open longer term if we want to look at, another or a new strategic plan if we wanted to start fresh. And maybe we don't know that until we have this initial review session, if you will. So I welcome the board's input or reconfirmation of that date at this time. And certainly we're here to do whatever the board would like as we work towards our planning processes.
As a follow-up on that, I think there was some discussion before about where we were going to have that. And me personally, I think it might be nice to get off campus somewhere, a more casual atmosphere where the board is more at ease to speak with. That's just my opinion. I'll do whatever the rest want to do, and I don't want to put a lot of burden on staff to organize a room here for that and that sort of thing.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with that. I think we need to be off-site. Part of a good strategic planning process involves that review that Mr. Whitlow is talking about. What's missing, just for our guidance in making a decision, is the review is absolutely necessary, but the second part of that is how do we prioritize what we keep and add to and move forward with, and that's your strategic plan. That's that document that's going to be a document that's going to live with your budgeting and so forth as you move into time. So I will be a proponent of doing a proper strategic planning event, if you will. And I like the idea of an outside facilitator. And I think we could even get somebody fairly locally. We wouldn't have to go spending a lot of money to do that. But we need somebody that can objectively come in, the staff and us as well, combined, we all are enmeshed in all of these issues. And a facilitator forces you to kind of lift yourself out of that and kind of look objectively and help guide discussion and make sure everybody's heard and that everything that you feel becomes a part of that working plan. So, I mean, to me, we're looking at either just doing a review and no strategic plan, or we're going to do a strategic plan. And I would err to the latter for me.
Anyone else?
I'm cool with going somewhere else.
I also think a facilitator puts fresh eyes on everything, and like Lori said, they're not so intermeshed with staff and us, so that may open opportunities for more open conversation too.
I'm good either here or off campus. I was just trying to make it easy on staff, whichever is easiest for staff. I understand the argument for and against having an outside facilitator. I do agree that it does give an opportunity for a fresh set of eyes and ears, and it may jog somebody's imagination a little bit to think outside the box a little. Some ideas as far as off campus. The college has a number of meeting rooms that could be used. I know the Board of Supervisors 10 years ago used the 4-H Center. There's other places that we could go to, but I just want to make it as less stressful on you and staff as possible. So whatever y'all what works best for you and staff. That's what I'm looking at for.
I guess I kind of need to know, that the September 4th is 2 weeks from, it's not a lot of time to procure not that it'd be a lot of work in procuring a facilitator, but, if we need a different outline or program of work, and like I said, staff, we welcome that. We're just going to need some time to reach out, identify someone to come in. And as an example, the previous strategic plan, we spent a lot of work with Ms. St. Clair on the outline of the 2 days. It was actually 4 days, 2 days with the board and 2 days with county staff. That was a lot of effort leading up to the strategic planning session. And I'm talking months rather than weeks. When we engaged Ms. St. Clair, but there may be some folks that may be available regionally. I just don't know by September 4th if we can get someone on board and get a whole scope of work in 2 weeks. Certainly off-site, we would welcome that. And in fact, I agree with the board. I think those things work extremely well to have a different site and gets us kind of out of our element here.
Let me throw this out there. Since we've already set a tentative date of September the 4th, why don't we do as you said, keep that date and use it for a review of our existing strategic plan? Because we have some new members that wasn't present last, and it would be some refreshing information for those of us that were present. And then plus it gets everybody to thinking, the thinking process to see kind of what you're gearing toward is what you're looking for. And then that gives us time. We'll set a future date, a couple of months, whatever, how long we need to make it to where we can get, if we need a facilitator or if we need to get another location, whatever, but give some time there. But go ahead and keep the 4th, and whether we do it here or whether we do it wherever, and just use that time to review our existing strategic plan and see how we're doing. Take the opportunity to grade ourselves and say, okay, here's our plan. How well are we doing to see it through? And then that gives each one of us the thought process, gets it started to say, okay, we're going to come back in 3 months. And what do we want to do? What do we want to keep? What do we want to discard? How can we make it better? That should be all of our ultimate goal is how do we make it better?
Mr. Vice Chair, keep in mind that we don't have an adopted strategic plan. All Chris has been going off of are categorical areas.
Yeah, and
so we don't have a strat plan.
Yeah, we put together a strategic plan when I first got elected to the board. Brent Robertson had it all lined up right here in this room, and we had a facilitator and put it together. We worked about 3 days on it, I do believe, and that was the last time. Yeah. And that was in 2016. And
I think that was similar to what we currently have. It was a report.
Yeah.
It was a strategic plan report. It was not necessarily adopted. And if you recall, Ms. St. Clair, noted that whatever the board did with the plan, whether you adopt the plan or you don't adopt the plan, if you're using the strategic plan report, and that's what we've utilized for our budgeting, that's what we've utilized in the departments, the board set those priorities and so forth. The plan may have not necessarily been formally adopted, but the report was certainly distributed, and we base a lot of our executive summaries and so forth on that. It has been a guiding document, if you will, but that was very similar, to the exercise back in 2017, I believe you may have referred to.
So,
Chris, can you send us a copy of the report?
Yes. Yes, certainly.
So do we want to keep the 4th and have that day here for review and discussion of, and just get everybody to get your thinking caps on, and we'll come back in a couple of months and sit down and hammer out.
Like you said, I'm new, but it sounds fine to me. I wrap my head around it and get it started. I think it'd be good, as far as I'm concerned.
I guess we could still have it somewhere else. Dan made the point of having it down there at Glade Hill.
Yeah.
That seems cool to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay with me, Tim, as long as we commit to going ahead and have Chris schedule an actual strategic planning retreat for us with a facilitator, probably no later than the end of October.
Does that give you time to?
We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can see.
Well, because it's going to be pushing us into budget.
The budget. Yeah. And that would be a very aggressive timeline, but, we certainly will reach out and see what we can do.
Yeah, because I know we want to start budget earlier this year.
Right, certainly.
All right, I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. So.
All right, so September 4th, and then we'll let you all know a specific location. We'll look at some alternative locations, maybe at the firehouse.
The bank was really a nice place that we went.
It was, Valley Star.
They accommodated us nicely.
Whatever's easy for staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make it easy on.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Other matters for supervisors. Marshall.
I had sent earlier, a couple weeks ago, a photograph of the NAP community dumpsters. And I think everybody's got the same problem in every district. Talked to Jeff a little earlier, and ain't a whole lot he says we can do about it. And I was wondering, Jeff, could we add additional dumpsters at those sites if we got the room? Is that a possibility? Rather than them throwing it on the ground, they're gonna fill them up, and hopefully.
There's some of the sites we can add additional dumpsters, and we did to Doe Run when we put the fence up at Grassy Hill. But Knapp Road, it's got as many dumpsters as it'll hold.
Okay, thank you.
And it's an unmanned site, and
it's a mess.
It's going to be abused, and it is also one of the sites at the county border, and which tend to be abused more than the others.
Yeah, I have the same issue in Henry.
Yeah, yes, sir. Henry and the graveyard, both.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mitchell.
I will echo what Supervisor Jamison just said. That should be a main priority of the county going forward, is getting that problem fixed. And I brought it up to you guys earlier about how at one time we were gaining good traction on talking, and we had the list of county properties and stuff, and we need to get back on that talk, I believe. That's just fallen to the wayside. We should get back on that. And on a brighter note, I thought the Ag Fair was great. My kids had a big time, and thank you to everyone and all the hard work you put into it.
Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a couple things. First of all, I want to thank Jeff for all his hard work on Grassy Hill. The dumpster site's coming together. It looks real nice. I think we should all be really proud of our staff, especially Brian in finance, and all these awards we seem to be getting. That just speaks volumes for how great the staff is here at the county and how lucky we are to have them. And the only thing I would address today, and it came up about this voltage in the water, I think moving forward, especially when we have these SUPs on short-term rentals, we should require that a street address is placed on every dock so that it can be identified if there's a problem. And that's all I have.
All right. Mr. Quinn.
I'm all set. No matters.
Oh, good.
Thank you, though.
All good.
I'm all set.
And you're all good?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would just like to echo what Mr. Mitchell said about the fair. I think it was a wonderful event, even with the weather. I know everyone seemed to just be in a festive mood, and I think kudos needs to go to our staff, Kevin, Paul, all their hardworking people, and all the employees that volunteered time down there. It was an amazing event, and we couldn't have done it without any of you. Looking at the different departmental awards that we recognize today, all kind of made me proud. Made me proud to sit up here on this side of the desk. Made me proud to be a citizen of Franklin County. But it also, you look and you want to take and give kudos to those department heads. But I got to thinking, who put those departments together? And that's Chris and your staff for hiring good people and putting them in those positions. And I think you deserve recognition right along with those departments for bringing the right people in the right spot. That's your job, and you do it well. And thank you. And thank you to you and your staff, Steve and Brandy and Brian and Lori and everyone. We're just very fortunate with the staff we have. Even Jim.
Even Jim. No, you do not.
But if no one else has anything, thank you everyone for coming out and your patience with us. Keep Mr. Thompson in your prayers for a speedy recovery. And if there are no other issues, we'll recess this meeting until our broadband meeting scheduled for Thursday, August 22nd, 2024 at 2 p.m., followed by our regular work session at 3 p.m. Everyone have a good evening.